My biggest regret as a Virat fan is him not winning the WTC. If you tell me he's never going to win the IPL, I would be comfortable with that. But if he is never going to win the WTC, that would hurt.
I think we can beat any team today in world cricket under any conditions.
Not just our A team, our B team, I'm not even joking, can give anyone a run for their money.
BCCI is quite strict about what you say about them and what you don't. What's your take on that? Is that good for sport?
It isn't. I feel like there are greater powers at play. There's a lot of stardom in Indian sport and there are a lot of egos which come with it. The BCCI are literally the guardians of every cricketer and obviously Indian cricket generally, right? So if anyone badmouths your product, no one would like it.
Was this during the whole fixing scandal and all of that?
It's not just T20 which just gets fixed like that. There was an Al Jazeera documentary about how Test cricket, India-England was fixed.
Because you're such a big Virat fan, to put you on the spot of that. Virat or Tendulkar?
I hate to compare, but I would say in college, Saanand, I don't know if you remember this, we used to all go to power play, Whitefield.
My friend
and if it was an 8:30 game, we would leave at 6. And it was just nuts. And that's when you'd know about the tin factory, infamous traffic and all of that bullshit. But point being, it's so good to see that so many places in Mashnunda where you can play football. There's one near my office, which is Lavelle Road, called Tiento. And it's small or whatever. I've played pretty much everywhere. I played in that, in the bull ring. The bull ring. I don't like that personally because it's just like
it's too small.
And it's like 4-side max. But I played in this other school called, what is it, Alsa School or something like that, which is near my side. And that's a proper big pitch. Very, very good. But now I actually do 3 sports a week. So I do cricket on Sunday, which is like tennis ball cricket. I do football either on a Tuesday or Thursday. And I do paddle. So paddle is so good.
I heard it's very addictive.
Yeah, you should play it.
I always wanted to.
I mean, the way I came to know about the sport, so when I was a journalist in TV9, I was obviously checking out some lifestyle stories in Bangalore and stuff. At that point in time, they brought the sport to Whitefield Sajapur Playo and they got a paddle court. So the guy in the paddle foundation said, listen, we just need a little bit of PR. Why don't you come and see how the sport is? And I just fell in love with it, bro. Like even right now, sure, I have an advantage because Sadashnagar is the only 3 courts in Bangalore. But paddle to me is like just a great thing. And now everyone's playing it. So your Klopp, your Beckham and all of that. Now it's become like a sexy sport. But even like, say, 5 years ago, everyone will love it if you play tennis.
It came about 2017-18, right? I remember because Play was a client of ours. So when they installed Paddle, I think we were handling the social media and stuff. So I tried playing. I liked it. I think, I played cricket so much. I had some hang of the swing and things of that nature. Obviously, technically it's different, but I wasn't too bad. Like I could aim the ball, I could serve, and I could do a backhand return. It wasn't bad. So I was like, okay. But I haven't played too many times. Probably played 5 times.
I'm guessing you watched the Wimbledon final. And who are you backing?
I think I'm no longer. I don't have a favorite anymore. Federer was, so I haven't like bought into anybody else yet.
But as a Federer fan, so I've never been a Federer fan. I grew up supporting Roddick. Right? And even before that, I like the baldness of Agassi, but obviously the braveness of what he had to show in court. But right now, I've still been a Djokovic fan. Maybe because I'm a Virat fan, I'm a Cristiano fan. I just like that absolute mindset, relentless pursuit of just excellence. And felt bad for Djokovic, but like this kid, Carlos Alcaraz, bro, is just nuts. But just come back to our conversation. So the last time I saw you was, don't tell me CMS. I'm sure I saw you before that. Because that was 10 years ago, bro.
I think I met you when you were working at Playwright.
Oh, yes.
I think I came in and I did one meeting there, I remember.
Playwright was such
Man, I'll tell you honestly, I have seen you outside Chinnaswamy multiple times during fan camps. I remember last time you did a fan camp with a couple of our friends, Jody and Adi.
Bangalore fans are absolutely. And did you see the roller coaster of emotions? Like if you look at our fan camps as well, which I feel like is a content stand, we just thought be absolutely raw with it. Unfiltered, passionate reaction, especially RCB fans, bro. Like we've gone through so much of pain, so much of doom and gloom in our life. But that 3.5 hours they go to the Chinnaswamy and experience the game is nuts. And they come out either absolutely in delirium or dejection. And here we are to capture it in fan cams. And sometimes I don't hold back in terms of either not probing a fan, but trying to get out exactly what they are feeling that moment in time. So there's some girls who absolutely, like teenagers, who obviously you never think that they care about the game that much. But then here they are saying, fuck is this? And is this how they're supposed to bat? And are we spending so much money in these kind of players? So IPL has become tribal, and it's evident, not just fan cams.
Yeah. So, it's crazy because you're also a RCB fan. So those questions actually come from a pure emotional aspect, right?
Correct.
Unlike other teams, which probably for you is more transactional.
Yeah.
But I remember after that particular game, KKR game, so I remember we were at Beer Club.
Yeah.
And like there were a bunch of, say, mid-20s group. And one of them just came over to the table and started ranting, right, to Jody. And he was like, I hate this, that, this is not working out. This every year this happens. We bought this player for X and all of that, usual stuff.
Yeah.
And we had a chat for 5 minutes and then he left. And I was like, so he's your friend? He's like, no, I don't know him. But that's what it's doing, right?
Yeah.
For us, like that misery breeds in company kind of a thing. So here it's a little different, I think, in RCB. Like there's a certain... I tried to think of it, and I don't know if you watched this this movie called United, 2011 BBC.
Yeah, I love it.
There's a great moment in that movie, right? The scene in which Jimmy Murphy tells Charlton the significance of playing at Old Trafford for United. He says, this is where the steel road workers are, this is where the railwaymen are, the cottoners, the textile, etc., etc. And he said, they have nothing in common till they come here.
Correct.
So you have to be your best to play for them.
Yeah.
It sums up United very well, right?
100%. And it's just food for thought because you think about how you try to get a team to play together or build a culture or build a community. Obviously, that was a part of their fabric, right? And it's documented over the years how United as a club have obviously been historic in different ways, symbolic. The Munich air disaster comes to mind. But that movie just lends so much insight in terms of the predecessors of Sir Alex and so on and so forth. And that quote itself is just moving.
So my point is, I think for RCB, it's similar.
Yeah.
Because Bangalore's changed so much in 25 years or 30 years. There's the old Bangalore.
Yeah.
There's the new Bangalore.
Correct.
Then so many people who have come in and still the North Bangalore is still expanding.
Yeah.
To be honest, all of the pockets of the city are so isolated in its own sense, and they all are right now like there's a Blinkit on every street.
Yeah.
So no one actually gets out to shop to other parts of the city like we probably did when we were younger here.
Exactly.
Right? So they're all micro cities of their own. We have nothing in common either until we come there.
Exactly.
And I think that's why RCB is so revered and it's a little different from other teams, I feel.
Yeah, I feel because also the fact that we haven't won the IPL.
Yeah.
So it just makes you love that particular franchise more, as silly as that sounds, because every year you're the skin's becoming thicker because you can take that much pain. And there are moments that we look forward to in certain games. And now RCB fans are content with that. Like in terms of Virat scoring a 50 or a 75, but RCB losing, there's certain fans who are happy with that. And I as much as I love Virat, I want the team to come first. So I literally teared up when Shianka Patil lifted the trophy, the Karnataka girl for RCB, and it was destined that the Karnataka Hudki would lift it. And it was great. I would love to see RCB win a title, bro. Make no mistake. Yeah. But I think we fall short because of so many factors. It's a culmination. People ask me randomly, saying, why do you think RCB haven't won a trophy, right? And I feel like you can put it down to the Chinnaswamy, you can put it down to certain management decisions, instability, which has always been there. There was a mad stat going around a couple of years ago when after Virat, there's no other prominent Indian batter. Dravid, right? Which is shocking. And then DK now has come up to the ranks. And there was Devdutt Padikkal for a while. So we haven't really given those Indian batters a long run, like some of the established franchises like CSK and MI. And when you look at those two teams, you think about stability straight away. And everyone keeps asking me, so you think you just guys are like the Spurs?
You know what sealed that thought for me? When we came up with Isala Kapnande.
Yeah.
What does it translate to in English? Right? This is our year.
Yeah.
How long have we as United fans taken Liverpool's case for 30 years saying, is this going to be your year? Is this going to be your year? And they would be like, this is our year.
But Liverpool have at least won something.
But that's, I think, just a function of, I guess, IPL is still young. So, that's why.
Look, Saanand, I'm an RCB fan because I'm a Bangalore boy. Right? I'm a BFC fan because I'm a Bangalore boy. If I grew up in a Kolkata household, I would have probably been a KKR fan for sure. It's not like I have an allegiance towards Virat. Sure, that accentuates it. It enhances it because I really was a huge fan from before he was loved by the nation. In 2008, 2009, I was having like a little friendly banter with my schoolmates saying, dude, this guy's the next big thing.
I watched the Under-19 World Cup.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched all the games because they were during my holidays for the board exam.
Yeah.
And I think it was in parallel to that, the CB series in Australia.
Correct.
So Rohit Sharma also sort of peaked there, right? Cemented his capabilities and stuff. So I watched that entire World Cup. And I think he hit 100 against Papua New Guinea. And he hit one more 100 in that series in the World Cup. So I watched it all. So
West Indies.
And I remember him hitting big sixes, and I'm like, okay.
Like BDM.
Exactly. And I was like, okay, this guy has something in it for sure.
And like, fast forward to Malia having that leap of faith, saying, I'm getting the under-19 captain. And then it was just nuts. I've heard another story about Virat's current agent and how he took a punt on Virat in terms of that point of time. I think he was just valued like a lakh or 5 lakhs or something. And like, look at the value that is shot up, right? So it's again great things which happen to Virat personally, but it's not translated for RCB. And sure, man, like Gale's given me so many great nights. AB has given me so many great nights. Chahal, many people think about these three, the Holy Trinity. But Chahal, I think, has been so many. I mean, he's been such a match winner for RCB on multiple occasions. It's nuts. So, yeah, just come back to the whole RCB IPL chat. It's just almost now when the summer hits our calendar, you can feel that vibe. You can close your eyes and think, yeah, bro, I'm just going to go get a beer here. There will be like, RCB fans here. IPL has just become like so synonymous with the summer. It's like growing up, what did you do in the summer? We'd probably eat mangoes and play cricket, right? But growing up through college and stuff, just watching games at 4 p.m. and then 8 p.m. and then 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Like the IPL has just taken over like nuts. And I don't know how it'll go in the long run in terms of it being a 6-month, 8-month competition like the Premier League.
So this is a great question, right? So what do you think is that? Because I watch a lot of TalkSport cricket. Jared Kimber. I think he's like he's probably the most underrated cricket analyst ever. And he puts up across some very, very good points, right? And there are a few going around who are basically talking about this, but where do you see this? Because now there's IPL that runs, I think, April, May majority. There's PSL that's probably just before that. There's that IL T20. There is the 100, which to be honest, I don't understand. I mean, I get what they're trying to do with 100, but then 100 and T20 Blast, I don't get it. That's a bit overkill, I feel.
I agree.
And then there's BBL that starts after. There's almost no place in the calendar right now for pure Test cricket as a window, right? And there's a lot of talk that should be the case. Now, I think Kane Williamson's not signing a contract. Bolt has anyway said bye to New Zealand. We won't in India because of just we look at cricket very differently. The subcontinent maybe. But the others are probably a lot more transaction. And now I think England's coming here in December, I think, for T20 series. And Stokes is going to not play that because he's with SA20. It's crazy.
It's mad. I think it is absolute chock-a-block for cricketers, but they are signing up for it and they're mad about it because ultimately money is the key there, right? So you're looking at even a league like the Major League Cricket. It's Travis Head, Maxwell and Smith in the same team last night, right? And these guys have just finished the World Cup, albeit Smith didn't play the World Cup, but Head and Maxwell have had a ridiculous schedule for the last 6 months because they've been through IPL for 3 months. Prior to that, I think they were playing some T20 somewhere else. So last year we did a video on Curating on Sunil Narine and how he had to kind of play 3 games, one on the 100, one in the MLC and one somewhere else in the space of 3 days. So we were actually kind of doing how many miles he would be flying. So
in 3 days?
Yeah, in 3 days. So he had to fly from Edgbaston, he was playing a game there in the Blast or something like that, finish a 100 game and then go to the MLC and play the game, the opening game or something like that. It was quite tumultuous. But point being, and your earlier question about Test cricket, see, I'm a huge lover of Test cricket. No matter how much T20 would take over our lives, there's nothing better than watching a good passage of play. The ebbs and flows of just a session, right? And I'm not just talking about the big series where your Ashes are happening or England away, Australia away for India, but even England West Indies yesterday. I was watching it and this guy called Cavan Hodge, 22-year-old, absolutely glorious to see the way he constructed his innings. Talk about all those words like grit and attrition and just Test match cricket shaping you as a personality, that was evident, right? So Test match cricket for me, no matter how many times you'll have a great advertisement of the sport. Last year we saw it with Shamar Joseph and that crazy Brisbane win. Who would have thought that guy across the Barracuda River or whatever in Guyana coming through and just blowing away the Australians in their so-called forte, which is obviously like Gavatar, we laugh at it right now. But point being, Test cricket ultimately has to have place in the cricket calendar. So if you look at it, Saanand, Australia have their December-Jan window. South Africa have their December-Jan window, right? So that will never move. England will always have their summer. So they have, I think, West Indies going on right now. They have Sri Lanka after that. Next year, I think India go there.
Yeah.
So that June-July slot is taken. For India, we have 2 windows. We have the Jan window where they play the Pongal test normally, and Ashwin said in his podcast. So that Jan-Feb bit. And then we play again in September, October, November, right? And that September, October, November can be divided equally. I don't know. I think we're getting Bangladesh, then New Zealand, and then followed up by West Indies, Sri Lanka, something like that. But point being, there's cricket throughout for these guys. And it makes my job so much more harder because Virat has a replacement, Dravid has a replacement, Ritturaj Gaikwad has a replacement, but Avanish Hegde doesn't, right? So we love it. We embrace it at cricket.com. We try to do as many podcasts and series to cover some of the biggest stories of the game, but after a point in time, it's just silly. Like they're going just before the BGT, and that's a huge series that I'm looking forward to, right? Later this year. Just before the BGT, they're planning to go to South Africa to play 4 T20s.
Yeah.
What is 4 T20s? You either have 3 T20 series or a 5 T20 series.
Yeah. The even numbers are strange. Even test matches, 2 test matches is like, if one wins one, the other wins one.
Exactly.
Who takes the trophy there?
Exactly. And it comes down to revenue. And I love the concept of the WTC, which is, of course, reinvigorated tests. Where it comes down to revenue, right? And you feel really bad for like boards like West Indies cricket because
no one's playing them.
No one's playing there. They had to spend nearly $250,000 on just logistics and flights and travel and accommodation when they went to Australia to, of course, play that 2-match test series. They lost one, they won one. And Johnny Graves, who's the Cricket West Indies sort of head, goes on as to say, like, we have to play India and we have to play Australia or England at least once, twice a year to at least make margins.
So what's the solution to this? Because if Kane Williamson, for example, isn't playing for New Zealand and Bolt isn't playing, I'm sure they get replacements in. But they're not going to be as good.
Yeah.
And as a result, the quality of the game is going to drop.
Yeah.
And then if you already have a problem of revenue, this is just going to add to that, right?
Yeah.
So what's the solution to this?
I think we need to start not mixing formats. So I look at it as separate sports almost. So T20 being a separate sport, ODI cricket and Test cricket. The future of ODI cricket lies heavily in the competitions that still are existent. So your Champions Trophy next year in Pakistan, the 2027 ODI World Cup. If India won that last year, it would have at least probably injected a little bit more life in that format because everyone thinks, we have T20s, it's great, it's so digestible. And then we have Test match cricket for all you romantics out there.
And T20s every 2 years, so it's not as important probably as the 50 over.
And that's another novelty factor which I don't get, Saanand. Like, why should we have a World Cup every 2 years?
I think it's a pure revenue call, right?
100%. So 2016 to 2021, we didn't have any World Cup because obviously like COVID and different things like that. And then since 2021, we've had 3 World Cups, T20 World Cups, which is blasphemous.
Yeah.
And then we have another one down the line in India, 2026. And albeit it'll be a great sort of way to unleash our new talent in the conveyor belt that the IPL dishes out. But sometimes I think to myself, like, how much cricket is too much cricket, right?
True.
And you got to separate sports. And that, coming back and answering your question, that is a solution for cricket to work in coexistence with 3 different formats. You still have the WTC. People watch this podcast and be like, but what's the point of having a West Indies Pakistan series? Especially in Pakistan, when they play on roads. You know that Babar and Rizwan's is going to turn up, score 150s, and West Indies will be skittled out. You need to have proper competition, and everyone is just obviously pointing at the big 3, which is England, Australia, and India, right? And those 3 are the cash cows. Obviously, India being the forefront runner of it, and let's see how it goes forward with the game. Early 2028, that's going to be pivotal for cricket. How people perceive it in the world.
But that's T20, right?
Exactly. And you look at all the countries entering the space of cricket right now. I'm talking about even Italy.
Yeah.
Or, for example, the USA women's cricket team. And the Asia Cup is happening right now. The UAE women's cricket team. And it's just all the Indian expats.
Yeah.
It's not like you're getting the proper Americans to play for the team of USA. Like the World Cup just happened. Aaron Jones, who's the captain, hails from West Indies, proper Barbados chap. Pretty much you look down that whole team.
There's not
Indians,
a single...
just Indians. Yeah. Not one guy.
And Ali Khan, I think, is Pakistani. Right?
Yeah. Exactly. So it just makes me think if you want to get cricket in different parts of the world, the grassroots need to be super important. And coming back to my bigger point, separate formats, bro. Just separate formats. It was good to see that Gambhir picked up his first squads or whatever, and even though there are a few overlapping players, like Gill's there in both squads and stuff, now it's high time we just literally separate formats. I'm not saying Bumrah should be playing only tests. Like, he's an exception. But predominantly identify players saying, listen, you're just going to be playing T20s for India, kill it.
So how do you do ODIs then? Would ODIs get influenced more from test angle or T20, or is it going to be a mix there?
I feel the way Gambhir also said it in one of his podcasts, I think he told Ashwin this, he said, look, I see it very simply. The players who need to play T20 international cricket for India come through the IPL, because the IPL is the best T20 tournament in the world right now. So pressure, you're learning how to cope with it, you're rubbing shoulders with the best. So if you do well in the IPL, that's your ticket to the Indian team in terms of T20 internationals. In terms of test cricket, good old Ranji Trophy. You look at someone like Pujara, who had to make massive amounts of strides just to get a gig into the Indian team, and then of course he cemented it like no other. But you need those kind of cricketers as well who can just be a glue. Your Pujaras, yesterday we saw Viharis, those kind of cricketers who are old school and willing to grind it out as well. I mean, Vihari is a great example because obviously well documented in that draw in Sydney and stuff, injured as well. So coming back to the whole point about ODI cricket and where that conveyor belt is, I think we still have a really good domestic system in terms of Vijay Hazare.
Yeah.
So if you can prove your salt there, then I feel like you can fast forward yourself to the 50 over. The 50 over format, let's be honest, it's become so comfortable for all these great right-handers we've had. Iyer, KL, Gill, Rituraj. These guys can walk in and just score 50s, 100s for fun. But it's about now trying to establish a style of play. We've seen it with England. We've seen it how they scored 398 or something against Netherlands in a game 2 years back at Amstelveen. And it just shows me, okay, fine, these guys are approaching 50 over cricket also with great, different vigor. But what is the life of that format? I agree with Ravi Shastri in a way that fuck bilaterals. Apologies for my French. Essentially, I would say play the Champions Trophy, play the World Cup every 4 years.
I agree.
Right? Because you still love that format in a way.
Yeah, no doubt. But then I think the only...
but I would make a few tweaks and I'd throw it back 15 years ago.
40 overs?
No, not the 40 over bit. And Sachin came up with a few things which I'll tell you about. But just the fact that they changed the ball. And you played it, right? Like, you know how much of a difference it makes.
So, okay, in South, in Bangalore, we have matting wickets, right?
Yeah.
So the outfields are bad.
Correct.
They're just mud and gravel, etc.
Yeah.
The ball would essentially wear out after probably 15 overs, if you're lucky, if you can maintain and stuff. But if you're constantly sending the ball out to the boundary, it's wearing out in 10, 15 overs. Once it wears out, it's impossible to hit it hard, right? The way you were batting in the first 5, 6. And I batted top order. So if the ball got old or if I had to come in and bat later, I struggled. Because the ball wouldn't go. So you put all your power, especially if you're playing in ITI grounds and places like that in Bangalore where it's hard to get the ball going.
Correct.
And it was actually a fair contest then because at least if you take that context and apply it into today's world cricket, when the ball's old and when you need to strike, you're not going to get 400 scores.
Exactly.
It's going to be far more even.
100%.
And reverse swing.
Exactly. Reverse swing, off spinners out of the game almost because obviously like when you have a slightly newer ball, it just comes onto the bat much more. And absolutely spot on with the points that you mentioned there, especially in domestic school cricket and college cricket, they tend to scuff up the ball more, so it gets harder. But in international cricket, coming back to how we can resuscitate ODI, it'll these really small tweaks, bro, because right now it's obviously so batting friendly and everyone likes to see 350 play 350, but I'd like to see a 200 be 200 at times. So we saw that in India-Australia's case, that World Cup game, the first one in Chennai, it was nip and tuck, and obviously India did their own shambles in the final by shooting themselves in the foot with that pitch and stuff, but that's a chat for another day, honestly. I don't want to look back at that. I'm just happy.
I was going to ask you about that. But, like, was that, there's so much from ICC that, that they were going to ensure a fair process for pitches?
Yeah.
It didn't seem that way when he played.
No. And I feel like there's a huge call that the BCCI takes in these things. Let's be fair. They might sweep it under the carpet. And that's the thing, right? Like, even me sitting here as a cricket expert and an anchor and stuff, I'm not going to hold back in what I feel about the BCCI. Sure, they might have to give me a job down the line. BCCI, if you're watching this, I have nothing against you, but certain things have to be more transparent. Right? In terms of just making it like so even Stevens for everyone. Like, you look at the T20 World Cup, okay? I understand it's played in the West Indies, but who the fuck watches T20 cricket at 10:30 in the morning?
Yeah.
Right? So West Indies made a deal saying they'll play all their games in the evening. And India made a deal because of the amount of viewership.
Also content.
Yeah, for sure. And then even the fact that we knew we were going to play our semi-final in Guyana. Right? Those things don't sit well with me as an Indian fan. Sure, we're a really good cricket team. We're probably the world's best right now.
And also because we don't need it, right?
I don't need it.
We're good enough to win in any condition.
If they didn't tamper with the pitch in Ahmedabad that day, we would have hands down battered them.
Exactly. I was just thinking about this. I was saying, there's no way, and we just had a 3-match series before that World Cup.
Yeah.
And you saw how we were batting throughout.
Exactly.
And I think that we lost one game, but that was also a high scorer and etc. I think we can beat any team today in world cricket under any conditions.
Not just our A team, our B team, I'm not even joking, can give anyone a run for their money. You know how many people, or rather countries, would take Sanju Samson in the 11? South Africa, West Indies, New Zealand would. Pakistan would eat them up.
I think everybody would. Even England would.
Exactly. And I feel so unlucky. I feel so bad for him because he's so unlucky. Even they dropped the squad yesterday. He's not there.
Yeah.
If he was a left-hander, who would have known, right? Because that's the other thing which selectors look into. I hopefully think it's not like a South Indian bias and Kerala, and because it's not such a...
You think that's there?
I still think that exists to some degree, for sure, because we've seen it over the years how the stalwarts in terms of domestic cricket in our country, i.e. your Maharashtra's, your Delhi's, Mumbai cricket, your Delhi and Tamil Nadu and Karnataka have had predominance. And sure, like those are the main cities which had so many great cricketers. But you look at even the talent that we're getting from different states right now, they might not be getting the best pathway to the top. And there's still a lot which needs to go your way, like in terms of luck. Is the scout turned up there when you're playing well? You might score 200 and there might not be anyone there in the stands to notice. But then you might score 15 and then you're bold, or you look dodgy in front of the scout, and then there your dreams and aspirations go. And you played in BCCI, right? So for me as well, for the longest fucking time in my life, I've always wanted to be a cricketer. And in the 10th, I just like my knee. So I've had 3 shit injuries in my life. 2 I'll tell you about, but this one was the game changer. I feel everything happens in life.
What happened? Did you snap your ACL or something?
Yeah, so basically football school tournament, and that just like put me out for 5-6 months. And then cricket's a rat race in our country, it's a religion. You can't catch up, right? And places like BBC and stuff, if you're in it, you have to be in it properly.
True.
So then I realized, and that was probably 11th and 12th grade, and I was coming to the term of, what I want to do in terms of college and all that bullshit. So I just said, I want to do sport. Whether it's sports medicine or sports physio or sports management or sports media, I want to get into sport. And it was just nuts. It was just nuts how I look back at it. But man, it's crazy. I mean, when you look back at what you want to do in college, everyone has a plan of, say, studying something. Bro, if I have to be very honest with you, right after Aditi, I just said I want to do a basic management course in Bangalore. So I was just looking at
because you want to do sport along with it? Yeah, same.
Right? And I was just like, I'd rather invest in like a nice master's in sports management in like Switzerland or something like that, and then take off there. But then life obviously doesn't go that way. So it meandered in a different route. So my last year of CMS, and I wasn't the best student, I lost my dad, man, and it was a tough time in my life. So there was a crossroad where, okay, finish college and do the same thing, or get into a job. I got into a job, and that job was Playwright with Nayantara. And Playwright was essentially a public relation firm for only sport. So they had clients like BFC, they had clients like Rohan Bopna, Pulera Gopichand, RCB, Pro Kabaddi League, so on and so forth. And that just gave me insight to how sport thrives and survives in this country.
And you realize that it's all business.
It's all business. It's a little bit of ego massaging because PR is that, not just in sport, but lifestyle, politics, every PR firm, you need a little bit of buttering the journos. But it was insane. For 2.5 years, I was just flying in, flying out of different cities, staying in some of the best hotels, interacting with some of the best sports people. If you're Virat and say this guy is basically Times of India, we would speak to Virat's team and then DOI journalists and hook up an interview and conduct that. And that was pretty much my job, right? And across sport. So whether it was tennis or pro kabaddi and so on and so forth. And my salary was peanuts, bro. Like, to be honest, like 10, 15 grand or whatever. But my boss, and shout out to Avanish, she was absolutely a hard task master in terms of, like how we've seen Fergie and like how he's honed Neville in scores and all that. It was literally like that in terms of, she was just like, listen, you're going to learn it the hard way, but trust me, you're just going to absorb so much which will take you forward in life. So fast forward to all of this PR bullshit. One fine day, and I don't know who it was, but it was one of the journalists from Hindu or the New Indian Express, and they were like, hey, Avanish, you look good, man. You speak well also. Why don't you get one, sports anchor gig? You speak well. So I basically just, maybe thought of that, doing that. Then like 3 weeks later, for some reason, I was just like done with play that pro and PR. I was just like, no chance. And this thought was embedded in my brain saying, fuck it, let me just go give an anchor test to one of these news channels. Which news channel? TV9 English. So I walked in Richmond Town on that Monday morning, and I've never been in front of a camera. And there's this thing called CFP. What is CFP? Camera fucking pressure. Everyone apparently has it. For me, I don't know whether I just took to it naturally. It was just like a duck to water, and they asked me to like read a couple of links, politics and fashion, whatever, and I did. And I applied as a sports journal, and they just said, fuck it, come on board. So it was great, and it made me think, shit, what have I really done to achieve this? It's just knowing sport and the gift of the gab. And I'm pretty sure, like, you seem like a guy who reads a lot of books.
Yeah.
Right? I'm averse to that in the sense I probably read only like 4 or 5 books in my whole life. And like I used to read Tintin back in the day, the sports-based newspaper. Basically that. How did I consume my knowledge growing up? John Dykes, Martin Tyler, Andy Gray, English sport commentary. ESPN, right? And I think that's what made me a really good communicator and speaker as well. Because, okay, fine, I went to an international school. And even you did, bro. But like, ultimately, it's about how A, you conduct yourself, and B, what do you want to really kind of achieve? I'm anyway a chatterbox, like a freaking Dr. Lamppost, as you can tell. You might have to edit a lot out of this podcast. But essentially, yeah, that's how my life meandered to being the person that I am today. And for the longest time, even when I went to TV9, Saanand, I only wanted to do sport. And these guys like, "Hey, banda sab kuch kar sakta hai, ye dalo."
Feed him more.
Mad. So I've done crime. They like literally put a button on me, and they made me go to a hooker parlor in terms of doing sting reports, right? And doing weather, rain reporting in the middle of Shantinagar, and I've fallen on live TV. And I was just like, back to you guys, more comfortable, sit down, makes it. Incredible experiences. I think I went to Kingeri to cover a story where there was this couple who started something called Swiggy for Pets. So I'm doing my piece to camera, and it's hot as fuck in the afternoon, some Thursday or something like that, and I'm holding a puppy, and I'm just like giving my piece, and the puppy's taking a watery shit on my shoulder. So all those kind of occupational hazards you have as a journal made me the person that I am today. But then just before COVID, I realized, dude, I can't be a news person anymore on a broadcast. I can't do this. I want to do...
Did you cover anything during COVID?
So COVID was when... So it's a funny story. So when I left New Zealand or whatever, I had a stint in Hyderabad for 2 years.
Okay.
And that was the only time I've properly lived away from family for 2 years in Hyderabad. It was a really good experience, opportunity. It was a new news channel in our country, and they wanted me to come up and set up sport for them. And that was perfect. But then, similar thing which happened. So they pulled me out of sport. They said, do sport, but you can anchor the 8:30 prime show. You can do the 9:30 show. And bro, I'm a vibrant, effervescent anchor. I can't do a serious Prannoy Roy, Rajdeep Sardesai piece on, sensitive topics like rape, right? And there was a prominent topic of, I think that absolutely shambolic news about a girl being raped in Hyderabad. And they wanted me to do that. And I said, look, as much as I respect all of this, I don't feel like I'm the right person for that. And they had a fire sale then that a lot of people just left the company. So it was getting to me saying, fuck, I'm doing things which is not really my cup of tea. I'm uncomfortable. So I said, fuck it. And I quit that job. Who knew COVID was going to happen? No one fucking predicted it, right? So when I came back to Bangalore, I thought 100% I'll apply to like ESP Cricket Pro, somewhere I'll get a job for sure. 6 months gone, bro, I've not got a single gig. I'm just like, what the fuck do I do? And I'm panicking. And here I am in COVID, thinking, shit, I'll start my own content scene on YouTube. I started a channel called Hegde Every Day. And I just put up random things. And then from there on, I was applying and just not getting anything. And I've cried 5 times in my life, right? For good and bad. once my granddad passed away, once my dad passed away, once my dog passed away, once when United did like that 2008 thing, I was just like going mad. And then the 5th time is when I was just like, shit, I'm not going to get a job. And you know that feeling? It's a shit feeling saying, what the fuck? I've put in all the miles. I've sent my resume out. It's just not clicking. And the world was in a tough space, right? Because no one's offering you gigs. If they're offering you gigs, you're taking a massive hit on your CTC. So August 2020, Crick Tracker, good old Crick Tracker, reached out to me, said, listen, we're going to pay you X. It was not a very good X, but I said, beggars can't be choosers. I was doing Caribbean Premier League for them, reporting from my house, setting up the green screen, recording pretty much in a setup like this, and sending clips to them. So I was doing that, and they sent me the contract. For like 9 days, I don't know why I didn't sign that contract. I have no idea. And maybe it's again, everything happens for a reason. The 10th day, this company called Cricket.com reached out to me. And it's almost like a call that you want to hear from a recruiter who's just saying the perfect things you want to hear. Imagine someone calls you and be like, hi Avanish, we've seen your profile. IPL is of course coming up. We want you to be an anchor for us and have the freedom to curate content. We're established cricket content channel now for like a couple of years. We're getting into this. We're based out of Bangalore, next to Bangalore Club. Bro, it's things that I want to hear, right? And they said, look, we've already kind of vetted you. We've seen what you have. Come give us an interview. There was no one in the office. There was one guy and pretty grumpy old man, but he had some power in the company. And he said, listen, I'm not going to waste your time. Give me a 3-minute camera recording of yourself talking to someone and in front of the green screen. And there was no one there. So he said, pretend you're talking to Kevin Peterson. So I was just like, sure. So I've channeled as my inner journalist and I'm just like, right guys, we have Kevin Peterson with us. Good old KP who played for my beloved franchise last week. KP, how are things with you? And then I was like enacting him and doing it back and forth. And that was it. And then Cricket.com just signed me up. And I had to say goodbye to the Crick Tracker and be like, thank God that was it. And then haven't looked back since. And it's just unraveled in a way that we create content that people want to see and which is not like just polished in a way for the BCCI, right? We want to be hard-hitting with our opinions. We want to be hard-hitting with our facts. We give a different look and feel to our channel in terms of the main content strands. So fan cams is one of them. And no one was doing that until like we picked it up and it just blew up out of proportion. We do watch-alongs, which is something familiar for football, right? But we've just brought so much life in those watch-alongs. We built a community through that. So when I look back at Cricket.com, it's just waking up every morning and you're so job satisfied. Because when you're building something from scratch, it's huge. Rather being in an established organization, which everything is amazing, you're getting a fat paycheck and you're doing your own things, but building something from scratch. When I joined them, they had about 1K followers on YouTube. And my mandate was to grow YouTube as much as possible. I've now almost hit 100K. I can't wait for the silver plaque to come through. And if it comes through, it's just a moment of celebration in words and what I've achieved as a cricket person and so on and so forth. And look, as much as content as I follow, there's so many things which can still be inculcated in the cricket world in India. Language plays a huge dominance. And I feel like that's been my Achilles heel, or professional Achilles heel, whatever you want to call it. Because if I knew Hindi, I would have probably been in Star right now or Jio right now. But is that my end goal? I probably want to do Champions League football broadcasting because with all due respect, guys, I just feel like they're Liverpool fans and I'm not calling them out for what they are and they do a good job, but like I feel I could definitely add a little bit of a breath of fresh air in sense, go back to TV but also have my cricket stuff. I also feel really passionate about Cricket.com in terms of this interviews that we do as well, right? So I interviewed Robin Uthappa and Danny Morrison and stuff. And normally when you share cricket interviews,
Brian Lara.
You Brian Lara as well.
Oh, that name.
Exactly, right? So, I mean, that way we've had so many, but like the ones that we're often doing recently, it's just been a concept called Unwind with Cricket.com. And I'm just talking to them about everything, about smoking, about their divorces, about what do they do on a good night out? What's their favorite alcohol brand? Like, those are the interviews that you want to hear as much as on-field insights and anecdotes from the dressing room matter. You just want to get into the mindset of, how do commentators survive in the IPL? Do they get their laundry? Do they order Swiggy? Do they have like their own Man Fridays provided by the BCCI? Those are small little things we unravel in our podcasts. And it's good, man. It's honestly good. Like, every time I look at it, I just get all emotional and be like, yeah, touch wood, bro. So it goes spaces. But if I have to look at my pathway in the next 5 years, I'd still want to be a part of cricket.com 100%, but I just want to do other sport. Because right now I feel like I can, because I've done sport reporting in different fields, I feel like there's so much more to give. So establishing cricket.com has been like 3, 4, 5 years. And now it's the time for me to like get into other facets or whatever. And someone like the other day likened me to a cooler, younger Charu Sharma. And I said, Charu's an amazing person. And he's like a person who I've actually looked up to. He's come on one of my podcasts as well. And he's just like, dude, you have it in you. Just, I mean, go for it. Don't worry about it. Because he does like kabaddi and he does like volleyball and stuff like that. And
is he still active?
He's very active
on those sports?
Yeah.
To be honest, don't follow much of those sports that you just mentioned.
Yeah, so he does his tennis bits. He does a regular podcast for the BBC World Service News called Stumped. So he's properly on that. Then kabaddi is a big thing for him. I think there are other buckets that he has his hands in with. And that's how I look at it, bro, because I love sport. There's not one bit in me which will ever get bugged. And my friends, my old friends, I think yesterday we were having a drink, he's like, bro, would you ever get burnt out? Would you ever get into a zone where it's just like, fuck it, it's too much?
But you love what you're doing.
Love what I do.
No, we're never going to be burnt out.
It's literally wake up in the morning. Obviously, like the biggest thing that I do is like I make a to-do list. And I think that's so, so underrated in life.
True.
Like,
and you can't force it either.
You can't.
A lot of people are going to tell you make a to-do list, and then you hear it, but then you're not going to be able to get yourself to do it or to even maintain it.
Yeah.
Right? It takes trial and attempt of multiple failures.
Correct.
Till you organically start doing it without you realizing.
Yeah. Exactly. And I feel
it's
like
mental map in the beginning.
100%.
Before it turns into a list.
Yeah. And sometimes I feel, look, I work on weekends and that's, again, an occupational hazard because it's sport. And I can't, that's like maybe the bummer, right? Because at times where I want to go out on a nice hinge date on a Saturday night, I'm just like, sorry, there's a little game that I have to cover. And it's fine. It's part and parcel of my job. But sometimes I feel when I look at my job closely, I'm just watching cricket or I'm reading about the game or I'm just like listening to other content, which I generally do. So coming back to the to-do list, every Monday morning, Saanand, I have like a routine. I wake up, I have a bottle of proper 1 liter water with lemon in it, put like coffee in the microwave, go upstairs and make my to-do list. And my to-do list is just 2 columns, professional and then personal. Personal could be like, get the clothes for the dhobi, go get groceries for mom, whatever. And then my work to-do list will be like, get a sponsor for the podcast, follow up on the graphic design, whatever, small little work, nitty-gritty in there. And I just feel so satisfied in terms of ticking those off. So at like maybe 2:45 in the afternoon on a Monday, I'm just like, okay, fine, I'm halfway there. And I'm just like, cool, this is how it is.
So this is a great tool. Man, I just showed you.
Please.
So I use this called Priority Time, okay?
Okay. And that helps you with your procrastination.
Oh man, everything. I'll just show you how it is. This is my homepage on.
Oh, I love it. Mate.
And I've been using it since 2014, 15. So, I mean, I've failed multiple times, but
that's amazing.
Today, this week, month, it gives you all of it.
Just the whole dashboard.
Yeah, this is my Chrome homepage.
Well done. Well done.
I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please do.
Use it. It's 100%. Amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, and that obviously helps you just ideate, execute, and go on and go forward with it, right? Which is mad. But coming back to like, the challenges that we have right now, albeit Cricket.com is a great startup and so on and so forth. So people often ask me, how do you guys make money, bro? Right? And right now we're not in that space where we're making money. But in terms of the future plans, there are various ways where we can make money. So in terms of cricket content on YouTube, you can make money through YouTube, obviously. And that could just be small amounts because it's still a small channel. And then you have the avenue of super chats when you do live streams and all of that.
Right.
But your main source of income would come through brand deals and sponsorships and syndicating content for someone. So we're going down the path of doing documentaries now for different stadiums in India. So that's something that we generally want to do with the KSCA. And now I've kind of traveled to different stadiums in India. So I've spoken to different people in the associations and been like, listen, we can give you a little document. Because if you go on YouTube and you type Chiraswamy, sure, you'll get a couple of drone shots and all of those things, but there's no proper story.
That isn't.
Like BBC little mini documentary on it. So that's our next sort of thought that we want to do. And eventually get people to sponsor this kind of content. We do a weekly pod. People are interested to come on and, of course, have their own real estate on our show and be like, listen, we can give you like 15% off on our stuff and so on and so forth. Because ultimately, cricket.com, we conglomerately have close to 10 lakh in terms of subscribers. So we're about close to 5 lakh now on Instagram. And Instagram as well, I think, sure, it's easy to kind of grow that metric on Instagram, but YouTube is so hard. Man.
Yeah.
It is so hard. It's an asset.
It is.
It is honestly an asset. And I don't want to be a sexist, but sometimes I feel like when you have a female anchor, you will definitely get more views. It's just how we function.
I just think it's a function of like, if you look good, it's a great arbitrage.
Exactly.
You can trade that.
100%.
And I think that's just holds good regardless of what genre or what category you're
in. And that's my competitors right now are just really good looking girls who know a little bit of cricket. And I'm not undermining their knowledge. Surely might be doing their research and they're well equipped and they know how to carry a conversation. But obviously, I mean, let's call it out for what it is. The fact that they have that little aesthetics about them, and that's super important.
But so it's actually more of a problem of culture, right? I think women's sport in general wasn't pushed as much. WPL has changed that completely.
Yeah.
And I think it's only going to go up from now on. But I think we've been behind the curve.
Yeah.
Even if you look at the equal pay, all of that came in very late, right? But if you trace back, I think all of that stems from a problem of culture where we just don't play enough. So I'll tell you a story of how I actually met Playwright.
Yeah.
Right. So when I finished college and I worked 6 months in my family business and so forth, after that I wanted to do something of my own.
Yeah.
And around that time I got introduced to this thing called the NCAA in the US.
Okay, yeah,
it's National Collegiate Athletic Association.
Correct.
Think of it like the BCCI for college sport.
Correct, yeah.
I was like, what? There's something like that. And then you go and read up about it and then you see college stadiums that hold 50, 60,000 people. And they have these NFL college football games, right? Divided into
Which is huge,
right? And they have something for basketball called March Madness. It's like a 64-team direct knockout tournament, and there's like a bracket challenge.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett, I think a few years ago, put out like a $2 million cash prize for anyone who predicts the bracket correctly. And it's crazy. In 2014, this is, I think, and I was just going through their numbers and everything. The NCAA, so they have 3 divisions, Division 1, 2, 3, based on the college capabilities, how big it is, how good you are in sport, you get categorized.
Correct.
All the athletes that play or go to the Olympics come out and say choose alternate careers like WWE, for example, Roman Reigns for that matter. He's an NCAA Georgia Tech footballer.
Yeah. And then multiple stories of that.
Yeah, multiple, right? Almost all.
Yeah.
Brock Lesnar.
Yeah.
Once went high school and NCAA undefeated.
That's why.
That's his sort of claim to fame. And from there, NCAA, he had a choice to go to Olympics or WWE, and he chose WWE.
Yeah.
Right? But if you go into the numbers, in 2014, this is, I think, their revenue was 16 billion.
NCAA.
College sport.
That's madness.
Right? And at that time, I don't think IPL was doing 16 billion.
Yeah.
Of course, IPL was new, 6 seasons old and so forth.
Correct.
So I went really deep into studying and how it works. So they have high school football or high school sport in general.
Where you see 50,000, 100,000 people come.
Yeah, or it's like a small town. You must have seen in all these sitcoms that we watch, like Modern Family and so forth, where families go watch the football game. That's a real cultural thing.
Yeah.
So in the weekends or on weekdays after school, the sport played and parents show up and everybody comes and watches it. It's like a proper community building activity.
Correct.
And I think it's very rare, but US, a lot of those things in US is created, right?
Yeah.
Because they had to, it's a new country, so they had to do things to bring them together.
Correct.
But the point is, sport there, from a young age, they are actually treated like amateur athletes. It's called, there's a word for it. It's called amateur or college athlete.
Correct.
So the people who play well in college get sent into the drafts.
Correct.
So the NBA draft.
And that's a perfect grassroots system.
Yeah, right? And it's so all sport, right?
Yeah.
There's lacrosse at college level.
Yeah.
Like it's not just the popular ones.
Yeah.
So about 18-20 sport in 2 categories, men, women, and all colleges play it. Obviously basketball, college football are the most popular ones there because of obviously the...
And I'm sure there's so many Olympic athletes who represent the USA.
you cannot go into Olympics unless you go through this pathway. And that's the reason they win 100 medals every year, every Olympics. Right? And so you trace back to our country and the population that we have. We don't do that, right? So I thought about this in 2014. I said, why don't I just create a league like that and get schools to play each other? So I did it.
You did?
Yeah, I did. And that's,
what was it called?
It was called Pro School League.
Yeah, correct.
I still think the Facebook page is there somewhere. But we created about 10.
Props to you, man. I remember I can imagine there's a lot of running around from pillar to post to do that.
My God, logistics is a nightmare. Format is a nightmare.
And you had obviously the good help of your two friends.
I think Jordy worked with us. Adi worked with us. A couple of other people too. A lot of folks from college, the ones who played football, were happy to volunteer. They got experience and helped them in career or just for the love of the sport. I said I'll pick football, easy to do. I tried to get schools in Bangalore around, go home and away and play this. Nobody understood the home and away concept. I still remember being in Joseph's, talking to the principal, and he's like, a tournament should be 2 weeks like the World Cup. I'm like, firstly, the World Cup is more than 2 weeks. Okay, and that's a tournament and not a league. There's a lot that goes behind the scenes to get somebody into the World Cup.
What was your proposal for them?
I just said, get your ground. We'll send refs. We'll send equipment. We'll get the schools to come. Just open it up for them to play each other. And they don't want to do it. They say, if you're doing it here, you got to pay us 20 grand for a day to rent the ground. I said, I'm not renting it for it's kind of creating a contest, right? But they don't get it. And I think most of them looked at it as transaction. And I did that for a year, somehow figured. Some schools were great. Jain International, we're part of Jain group as well. They really care about sports. So they came forward. They were happy to do whatever it's required. Few other schools too helped, like so Greenwood and so forth. But otherwise, it's hard to do. And I think towards the end of the year, I realized that for a lot of the schools, sport is a check in the box with which they can hike the fees the next year. Saying that, hey, we have this facility, this ground, this program, now pay 10K more, 20K more, whatever it might be. And I think everyone looked at it that way. So there was no real importance given to culturally stemming a sort of a habit of playing sport or that going towards character development. They thought a 30-minute PT period, as it's called, would help people do that, and that just doesn't, right? So then I shut the program. I said, not happening, and then I went into the consulting firm and I did some work there for a couple of years. In that process, I met this friend of mine, Richard Hood. He was the first head of youth development for BFC. Tata Football Academy before that. I think about 2 or 3 years older than me.
And how did you meet this guy?
Oh man, it's crazy. I finished college and I didn't know what to do. So I just said, I want to be a football coach, right? One of those moments. But the kind of guy I am, I'm not just making up ideas. I'm chasing it before it's like, do it before you, procrastinate time. So one day I just walked into BFC, right? And okay, this is another story. I'm the first season ticket holder for BFC.
Really?
Wasim gets the credit for it because the guy didn't have change. I had to get 2 tickets, so I paid the money for it. The guy went to get change and he gave a register and said, write your name. So Wasim wrote his name before me and I wrote mine after.
That's insane.
And that's why Wasim is the first season pass holder, but it's actually me. I bought 2 tickets. Anyway.
That's madness.
Right? And the other one was for my friend who owned Power Play. So, that's a story.
There's a BFC first for me as well.
Right?
I was their first ever BFC TV anchor.
Oh, perfect.
Episode 1 is still on YouTube. And I looked like an absolute tool. And I did a crossbar challenge with Chetri and the lads then. And not one of them hit the bar. I did. I was just like getting there, lads. So that was there. I think that was the Westwood era. And then this girl called Alexa Nahar.
She's humble and so forth.
So she basically took over from episode 2 because I felt sick. So my boss Nandara absolutely gave me pelter saying, I've said to you this, give it up, why can't you come to Arbor? And I was like, anyway, I can't, I generally can't because I'm sick AF. And from there, that opportunity slipped. And again, things happen for a reason. But come back to the whole...
So that's how I met Playwright, by the way. So when I was doing the league the first time around, a friend of mine who later mentored me, hates me saying that, but Dominic Vijay, so he said... He sent me to Nayanthara. He knew Nayanthara really well, and he said, "Speak to her, figure out opportunity." So I did. Anyway, I met Nayanthara, and I realized, oh my god, there's absolutely no leverage I have here for anything because she's operating in the big leagues anyway. But that relationship was there. She called me 2 years later. I think that's when you were there, and she needed some help with something. So whatever. So I learned the PR side of things just through those few interactions and figured what works and what doesn't. Anyway, years later, met my friend Richard Hood. He now works with FSDL, Reliance, developing youth football and so forth. I think before that he was with FCBU. He got them from Super Division to League 2 to almost League 1 of I-League, but obviously COVID years and things of that nature.
Fair.
So when I met him, this is in 2014, coming back to that story. So first I went for season pass, got it done. Later, I went there 2 weeks later because my then coach from college, Nixon, was coaching the under-14 team of BFC.
Good old Nixon.
Yeah. So,
Chubby Nixon.
So I went and met Nixon. He played for India and stuff before. Mohan Bagan and things of that nature. So I spoke to him. I said, listen, I'm considering doing this because, I have nothing to do. Well, how do I go about it? So he said, I don't know what the latest rules are, but there should be somebody at BFC. Just go and ask. So he said, speak to Richard. I didn't know who Richard was. So I just walked into the youth team's room, just like that. And I said, hi, I met Nixon. He said, I should speak to you. So Richard said, look at AIFF, WIFA, they might do it. He gave me literally 2 minutes. And he said, just do this and that's it. Okay, bye. And politely asked me to leave. So I left. I applied for my D license with AIFF. They gave me a batch somewhere in Himachal, Mandi, I think, in December of 2013.
Jesus.
Fucking hell. I had to go. I mean, the travel was insane. I had to go to Delhi and then to find a bus and then some 11-hour journey to get to this place. I registered, I paid for it. It was really cheap, like 5K or something like that. And then they said, you got to figure out your accommodation and all that. Just about a week before that, my granddad fell ill. He later on passed away that same month, but I decided not to do it. And then I didn't. So I waited and I realized 6 months later that, oh shit, I haven't done this. And around that time, I was figuring out what to do with the league and all of those things. And the league ended and I was like, screw it, I might as well just go and do it.
Yeah.
So then WIFA was doing it in Bombay. And they're quite an active football federation.
Yeah.
They do a lot of stuff. So I just applied, went for a week, stayed in Bombay, did the course, changed my outlook to football completely.
Why?
Oh man, I'll give you one insight, which is, look at Spain. Historically have never done well, right? They had won Euros sometime in the 80s.
Correct.
But for prior to that and after, no real success, even though they have two juggernauts in Madrid and Barcelona, right?
Yeah.
But internationally couldn't replicate it.
Correct.
Somewhere prior to Guardiola's revolution, I think they realized a few things, which is among the giants of European football, there are certain things that they have in common, which Spain does not fall under. For example, Italy, Germany, England, France to an extent, even Netherlands, always had strong, big players, right?
Yeah.
Technically solid, but a lot of physical element to the game. Be it the Germans who are tough to break down, or English, which is all about the physical football, Italian tactical. Spain didn't have an identity, right? So one thing that Spain realized is, and it's very simple, what's the average height of a Spanish guy?
5'7"?
Yeah. They can't play that style.
Yeah.
They're physically inferior, right? If you go on that. So they had to develop their own style of play.
Exactly.
And they did. And which is revolutionized into what was, which is, I think, now become tiki-taka and the Guardiola's philosophy.
Yeah.
But I think India realized that too.
Yeah.
And said, we can't just keep hoofing the ball from the back.
Yeah.
And expecting our forwards to do the work.
Correct.
And they went, and I think a lot of people, Richard was probably part of some of the process, but they studied, and they said, we'll create a new manual for way India should play. And that was one first step, I think probably an Indian Federation took somewhere in the mid 2010s or so, or early 2010s, to say, let's create our style of football. And I think a lot of it was inspired from Cruyff's principles, which was simple concept, which is the player could be a defender, midfielder, it could even be the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Who's closest to the ball
in
an attacking scenario is the first attacker.
Yeah. And that's such a simple fucking philosophy.
And it could be a forward who loses the ball, but if you're closest to the ball, you're the first defender.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Correct. And in terms of your movement off the ball, on the ball.
Yeah, because I talked to my dad about it. He played a lot of football. And he played in Kerala growing up with different, styles. But I think certain things he did well, like he passed the ball well, very good ball control. But you had those stereotypes in India, right? The forward with the flair, who scores goals, selfish, doesn't pass. The midfield engine whose job is to go up and down. Stamina, whoever has stamina, they put them in midfield.
Yeah.
Or the wing who's quicker.
Yeah.
Stall, the most technically inferior player goes to the back.
Yeah.
Right? We had the stereotypes.
Correct.
That gets broken down.
Yeah.
Because everyone has to be equally good at everything.
Yeah.
It's a choice you make based on the the final aspect of skill, like for example, if you are, say, technically you're of a lean build, and if you're quicker and so forth, you're probably better playing on the wing or up front versus someone who's a little stockier, but that's at the last minute.
Exactly.
At the skill level, you sort of base it on principle that everyone should be able to do everything.
Yeah.
So India went into that direction.
And you saw that when you went there.
So when I did the course, they taught us from that perspective. So it's funny because we've done so many coaching programs in cricket and otherwise. And cricket, I think the reality of cricket is a late specialization sport.
Yeah.
People don't realize that.
Correct, yeah.
Tendulkar can pick up a bat at 10, play for Mumbai at 13 or 14 and play for India at 16.
Yeah.
Almost no footballer who picks up the ball at 10 makes it as a professional.
Yeah.
Impossible. And
that's the $1 billion question that we keep asking as Indians. Population of 1.4 odd, and we just don't have a level. Yeah, so going deep into the subject at that time, I learned so much. So one of the things of what I learned in that program was how to conduct a training session for kids, right? And it is a 1 hour session. So they said if you're somebody of the age 10 and below, an hour is enough, in all honesty. Because the concept in India is you need 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours of training, probably when you're already in the professional journey. But someone who's below age of 8 or 10 does not know that they want to be a player or no. Correct. A kid's playing the sport because they love the sport, right? It's just about enjoying it. So how do you help them enjoy, but also at the same time teach them? So a session was divided into 4 halves, quarters. First 15 minutes is called warm-up. Second section would be called session, which is whatever you want to teach. The next 15 minutes is called progression, which is a little harder challenge from there. And the last one is a small-sided game. It's called a SSD. SSD.
A small-sided game. It's like a 5-a-side or whatever, like you make them play.
And those are 4 parts of just shaping users.
Yeah, and every session is built. So we were doing a session on attacking, for example. And
these are kids under 10.
Yeah, but we were put into scenarios and there were these instructors from AIFF who were taking the session, coaching us while telling us how to coach.
Fair.
And I remember at some point I made it was an attacking session, but I applied something from a defensive standpoint. Like for example, instead of going forward, I passed the ball back or so. So it got flagged and he said, this is an attacking session. So we're not covering anything defensive. If you lose the ball, you lose the ball. But we are right now just trying to just play forward because it's an attacking session. We're only covering attack.
So even a sideway pass would be...
Yeah. So for example, I messed up a pass. Okay. It didn't matter. He said, this is an attacking session.
But the intent matters.
Yeah. So he said, this is an attacking session. So passing doesn't matter here. We are only focusing on attack. So it's broken down to that level, right? Correct. So that was my first experience, which is great. Then I came back. I was at Gold's Gym in Indiranagar. I did nothing with that certificate though, which I had. I sat on it for probably 6 months. Then a friend of mine who I play football with opened an academy, so I helped him out. I coached there for about 3 months or so. But before that, I remember I was 3-4 months after this course, I had the certificate. I was working out in Gold's Gym in Indiranagar and I see Richard on the treadmill. So I walked up to him and I said, hey, Richard Hood, I met you, this, that. We connected. And all of a sudden, he was doing a clinic at Game Changer.
Oh, okay.
At Tiento. And he said, if you're free, come over. And this is when I was in transition, figuring out if I should stick doing to the league or I had this offer from these consulting guys to join them. I don't know what, I didn't make up my mind yet. So he said, come over and let's see if I can place you with one of the BFC teams or something. I said, great. Back to being a coach. So I went and did the session with him.
It's funny how all these things have...
Yeah.
And that's why, I don't know, going slightly off topic here, but do you believe in fate?
I mean, I guess I try not to think about it.
I mean, I ask you that because we obviously have our choices and we can control it to a certain degree. But it's small things which play a part, right? Like, if you didn't decide to go to the Gold's Gym that day and you were just lazy, you would have met Richard.
Probably.
Right? So it's these small little things which makes you think, oh my God, am I supposed to be here? Am I doing what I'm doing? But just going back to your story, why did you pursue your whole coaching dream?
So anyway, I went and did these sessions with him.
Yeah.
Turns out, I had my D license and whatever. So there were a lot of other people in Bangalore who had just done D license when it comes to. Richard made me do some drills and
that's AIFF and FIFA approved.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's the equal to the FA level one. What you need. So Richard is at that time was a UEFA A license holder who was going for UEFA Pro, and I think he had just done it, or I'm not sure. At that time, he had more qualifications than Zidane. Zidane was at Real Madrid B with UEFA A, by the way. So they were at the same level. So he did his course with Duncan Ferguson and people like that. I think he was at that time the most highest qualified Indian coach in the country. And that's why BFC and so forth. So finally, I think we finished the course. Funny thing, I found out my high school coach was there. He had just done his D license too. So he was at the session taking the same thing, which is kind of crazy.
That's bad. Small world.
Small world. And then Richard said, I can get you something with Game Changer on weekends evening. And I know where Game Changer is. And I live this side of town. I said, I thought about it. And then I was like, I'm also figuring out projects at that time with this consulting firm. And I was in two minds. So I said, that is too far, but if I can get anything else, I'll do it. And unfortunately, BFC didn't have an opening. So that didn't happen. And I let it be. So then I went into the consulting firm who basically wanted me to replicate the league for somebody in Hyderabad who was from a political family and he was building something large. And he said, hey, can you help me build?
And Hyderabad have the moolah, bro.
Yeah, man. It's crazy, right? So this guy had built these 12, 13 acres of land and it was play arena at a very large scale, basically. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's try and sort of replicate the league. So my first thing was to figure how I can...
When was this? Pre-COVID?
2016. 2016. So I took the TAL guys at the amateur league. So I took them to Hyderabad saying, let's figure out if we can build this.
And how do you know them?
I played TAL. But I think
those guys are Bangalore guys. Proper Bangalore guys.
So Kishore studied here. I think Kishore and I are the same batch, or otherwise we played football. I think Kishore's not with TAL anymore. But at
so you took them to Hyderabad.
I made the introduction trying to see if TAL can be set up. It didn't work out. Also, my idea was to create the league for grassroots, and that didn't come to happen at all. At that project, at least. And by the time it came to life, I moved on from Red Dot and set up Virality. That's a different whole other story.
Fair.
But at that time, when I was in that process, I had met Richard too because they had a thought that they want to create a club. I mean, they want to start a club to play in the ISL or I-League and probably from Hyderabad. And I think this was before Hyderabad FC, if I'm not wrong. And I met Richard again. So he said, I've moved on from all of this. I now work for AIFF. I said, oh wow, what do you do? So he said he's building grassroots programs for them, figuring out how to improve grassroots. And I said, okay, great. So what are you up to? So he gave me this document. He sent it across. And it was something called Baby League. And I was like, what is this? So he sent me another link of something in Latin America. Have you ever thought why Latin Americans produce the kind of players that they do?
The startlets.
Yeah. And they have no infra. They have less money than we do at this point in time, some of those countries. Bolivia and so forth. Half of them under dictatorship and so forth. Crisis all through, but they create great football teams and they have probably created the greatest players. If you name the top 5 players to ever touch a football, 3 are from that continent. Right? What's the story? So he explained it to me. So he said they have something called baby football where so in Buenos Aires or any of those cities, there are about 70 community operated football leagues, right? That start at under 5, go up until whatever age category, and then from there they turn into club players and so forth. So it's for kids basically. And Luis Suarez, Messi, all of these players have gone through that system. So the idea is simple and they love football, right? So and parents also want to get all kids to play, and that's also a way out of poverty, kind of like cricket in India. So they get kids to play every weekend, and I was looking at. I know he shared some stories about Messi. Messi was so good that 4 different teams in different leagues had him. Also different age groups because he was that good. He would play 4 games every weekend.
That's bad.
So before he went to Barcelona, he's played 1,000 games.
Some Newell's old boys.
So even before that, he was in a youth team of Newell's and they were interested obviously. But at the age of from probably 5 to 8 or 9, he's played 1,000 games.
That's right.
1,000 real life scenarios. So a lot of people say Barcelona made him, but the point is his skill on the ball was developed even before he went to Barcelona. And how do you develop that? Because as a baby, you learn how to manipulate the ball.
And this is so important because you were mentioning the age aspect a while ago, like with cricket being a late specialization sport. what is the difference between our athletes and any other athlete? Now, even the Olympics is around the corner, and I'm pretty sure India will do well, right? You're talking about, say, for example, tennis. Federer is Federer because he's been playing the sport since the age of 3, 4. But he also has an incredibly good support system from that age. Your nutritionists, your dietitians, your coaches, all of that is just set up for you in a way just to thrive. For India, there's so many obstacles. Not just in football, but across sport. Football's getting way better right now. I like the fact that Jio's investing in grassroots with the ISL and all the initiatives. I know it's a CSR take more than anything else, but it's getting somewhere. Coming in, talking about grassroots sport in India, it has to start from school. It has to start from college. Because think about it, bro, you and me, we were products of our school team. And then we ascended to our college team. And if we were in, say, Joseph's or Cotton's, where you actually get some scouts to actually come see rather than some random international schools, who knew? Right?
So I have a different take on this. I think in India, every athlete is a product of a private academy.
Okay.
Across sport. I don't think there's a single athlete.
In the modern gen?
I think in all generations.
Okay.
Even Rahul Dravid went to the famous academy of Tarapur, you know, and I think...
But after getting school recognition though?
No, I think it was parallel maybe at that time. Again, cricket, like I said, is a late specialization sport. So like Dhoni was playing football.
Yeah.
They said, hey, try out being a goalkeeper, play wicket keep, and it so happened, right?
Yeah.
But cricket is an exception. But you look at other sport, it's almost impossible for you to become an athlete unless you have some kind of professional mentorship right from a young age.
So, for example, let's look at it from a lens of a young Bangalore boy plying his trade in Austin Down, playing multiple games, right? And he wants to enter the BFC team or the youth academy.
So, great example. I think those pockets. So, I'll tell you the difference there too. Like you said, schools need to be the genesis, right? I think society needs to be the genesis. School is a reflection of what society wants. So, if society, like, I'll give you another example. Iceland has less population than Indranagar.
That's a mad stat.
Right? But Iceland has a team. I mean, sure, this generation is not as good as the one previously.
Yeah.
But that made it to the quarterfinals of Euros and so forth, right?
Correct.
Shocked England.
Yeah.
England's current revolution is a byproduct of what happened with Iceland.
Correct.
So, and if you look at all those countries, the ones that are playing football in the top 15, 20, whatever, and football as an example, they don't have coaches or they don't have paid programs at a youth level. It's volunteership. It's volunteering of a parent finishes work and comes in, gets kids together and say, now play, I'll referee the game.
Correct.
We don't have the luxury of that, not just us, most Asian societies. Japan is the only outlier in the entire ecosystem of the Asian football, which I think has broken through. And that's because they invested. There's a guy called Tom Bayer. Check him out.
Okay.
See if you want to ever speak to him.
B-U-Y-E-R.
B-Y-E-R.
Okay.
He's, I think, the modern architect of youth football in Japan.
Okay.
I think his principles have, in a way, impacted what Japan has done with the J-League and everything else. So in Japan, it's school system. So they are all playing youth football because school is the most structured format. The academies are not so much. And they translate into clubs and it is what it is. So Japan has taken some of it from the US and they've always, I think, had that habit of borrowing. Like even baseball, funny enough, is big in right?
Huge,
it's big in Japan too. So I think there's some connection that I've never really figured out. Also, they fought in the World War, which is strange, right? If you look at all of that. So if you look at that, Japan has done well. But apart from that, no other Asian country really has broken through. The other examples are the ones of Iran, Qatar now, because a lot of influence and money being poured into it, structured. Saudi, China tried, failed. Society isn't built for that kind of a thought process. Same problem as India. So China spent a lot of money, and I think now Tom Bayer is there with China. He's trying to figure out this.
And there was a time when the Chinese Super League was attracting.
But they went the Saudi model, right? They put money into it, and that was not sustainable because it was just not sustainable. Simple as it gets. Saudi also at some point will choose not to invest that kind of money because you can't keep that up forever. It's a fact. So, and if you look at Latin America, I think Brazil made most money through football exports in the last 10 years. I think each year they've been clocking about 900 million in transfers received into Brazil as a function of players going. And we only hear headlines of what is that kid, Endrick, or the other guy, Victor Roque, right? Who went to Barcelona. But there are so many others who are going to smaller countries,
They must
going
be
to Japan.
stories.
Yeah, India is bringing some players, right? Here and there are some Brazilians who once in a while come and play. And I think there was a Cristiano Junior. Was he Brazilian?
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away in Kantira Stadium. Huge story for all of us.
Clash with the goalkeeper.
Yeah. Dempo.
They rushed into horseman.
Yeah.
This fucking Malay was right there.
Well,
anyway.
Can't help it.
But
yeah, so you remember, right? So there are cases of Brazil doing that. And the root, the genesis or the secret sauce for all of them is societal. Yeah, exactly. Everybody plays it.
Correct.
Everybody gets out and just play.
Taking your example and applying it to modern day Bangalore, Austin Town, right? Societal there is, okay, not the school in Austin Town, but say Kumar's Football Academy. And at Kumar's Football Academy, you might have one or two crazy guys. Someone will have a word of mouth and be like, boy, this matcha is good, yeah, go give him a PhD. That's how it'll probably work out, right? Or do you think it's a more structured way?
So 2016 around that time, Richard shared the program with me and he asked me, can you do this? I said, I'll figure. I was still at the consulting firm, couldn't do it. Next year started virality, tore my ACL, was like, I was fucked, and I tore my ACL, MCL. Oh yeah, man, I was playing the amateur league.
Oh my word.
50-50 tackle, both of us stepped on the ball, balance off.
Was it one of those things you instantly knew?
Yeah.
You didn't have to
I fell in a way where I cracked my MCL first.
Oh.
The pain was incredible, and out of the pain and reflex, so my leg went this inwards, it collapsed.
Oh God.
And I flinched and went back. So my leg continued to collapse and whole body and my knee just rotated. So I snapped my ACL.
That's a really job.
So grade 2 MCL, full tear ACL, partial strain on the PCL, which is the one behind the ACL, right? So I did a whole rotated thing and my weight just took out all my ligaments and I fell backwards. I was there. I knew it.
So you bedded in for how long?
Not too long. For 3-4 days, I had swelling. I showed up at work because I had to. Early days of virality, I couldn't take days off.
Yeah.
And I had to do my prehab to get my knee mobility up to. So before you do your ACL, you have to be able to bend your knee 90 degrees or 180 is what they say, right?
Annoying, painful exercise.
So that took me about a month. So I was on crutches, month and a half. Then there was some stupid doctor strike that time in Bangalore, so I couldn't get my surgery done for about 2 weeks. And finally, I went under the knife in end of November. And I was back 3. Then I did the rehab and I did hydrotherapy, walked in a swimming pool every day, built it back, started running 3 months.
Life experiences.
Dude, that was an incredible journey, those 7-8 months.
Yeah.
It just toughened me up to a different level.
And you actually, the silver lining there, you feel like a proper sportsman going through rehab.
Yeah.
I've seen stories.
I remember going to the gym, doing leg press again, leg extensions. It was so hard. So what happens in the ACL is that your muscles your leg becomes like it was when you were 8-year-old.
Yeah.
Right? It shrinks basically.
Correct.
So it shrunk. And then you have to build that muscle back up.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize I took an extra. So they cut my hamstring to create my graft.
Oh.
I did a hamstring graft.
And where do you get this done?
Manipal. Hemant Kalyan. Great surgeon.
Yeah.
I recommend him to anyone who wants him.
Top lad.
Top guy.
But yeah, so that threw you off.
Yeah, that threw me off and I couldn't get the league going for about a year. Then in 2018, I said, screw it. I partnered with a bunch of people who had similar interests and I said, let's do this. And we launched something called the Community League. And we got academies to come in and play each other. Kids under...
And how many all across Bangalore?
Yeah. So we did it in Play Arena and Sarjapur because it had the infra to accommodate everybody. So we did about under 8, under 10, under 12. We got clubs. BFC played in it. Boca Junior Soccer Schools played in it. Bunch of them did. Barca, I think, had an academy program. They participated. And a lot of local guys also came through. And we ran it for about 21 weeks. So the idea was to give each team 20 weeks to play each other and then we try to create a playoff format and knocked off. So that was a parameter set by
AFF. Came to fruition.
Yeah. So we were the second league in the country. The first one I think was in Meghalaya.
Okay.
That part of the country is anyway very active.
And the success of the first year?
We didn't mention it. We didn't bench it against any progression any of the kids made or anything, but just about getting game time in. That was new for kids.
And establishing this.
Yeah. And since then, a lot of other private parties have taken over. So we did that as a not-for-profit initiative because we didn't want to make money out of it. And since then, a lot of private guys have come in. There's something in Bangalore that a friend of mine who was with us, he runs it now, called DPDL. which is backed by this Belgian company called Double Pass.
Okay.
They're into grading football academies and stuff like that in Germany and in Europe and stuff.
But it's good to know that those kind of synergies are now happening in
everyone's trying to figure out ways to be involved in Indian football. Some of them from a very commercial angle, some of them from pure not-for-profit kind of angle. There has to be a blend of the two. That's when it really kicks off. But since I think KSFA has picked it up, they run a league too. But I don't think it's as organized as the private guys.
Correct.
It's a little haphazard, but they're doing that. Now I think AIFF realized that some people, so they said we'll do a grant system, right? We'll pay money to people who are doing this as an initiative.
Yeah.
So I didn't know about it till after a year, so I couldn't apply. Second year something we applied, and then it turned out that there are a lot more people before us, and then the funds are exhausted. I said, wow, great, well done. Right? So the due diligence system, the tracking system, they built an app and stuff like all that. The intentions were great. Guys like Richard and a few others, I think Kishore was another person there who did great work, but then there were not enough people probably. The system is a little erratic, right? As it is at the AIFF. You see all the shit show that's going on right now. A lot of loopholes for fraud and stuff. So I don't think it came to life. After that, I think now Richard moved to FSDL, which is Reliance. So they are doing a new program wherein they took a data, they mapped data basically the last 50 years, looked at what are the regions in the country that have produced Indian players.
The hotbeds.
Yeah. So they said Goa,
Kerala,
Malabar, North Kerala, West Bengal, Northeast. 70% of our talent comes from Northeast, right? Meghalaya specifically, in fact. And they looked at a few other pockets, Punjab a little bit here and there.
And Karnataka?
We have, but I think our pockets actually can be narrowed down into Murphy Town, Austin Town, Gautampura. It's 3 regions in central Bangalore.
Little Brazil.
Yeah, right. And there's a crazy story behind that too. I don't know how far it's true, but apparently there were British kept World War II prisoners in those jails.
That's incredible.
And they were Europeans, and they taught the locals how to play football who worked in the jail.
That's bad. There's some connection with Pele.
Yeah, that's why. So
Gautampura.
So also there's a bit of religious thing. Austin Town is more Christian. Argentina support. Gautampura is more, I'm told, Hindu. I don't know how far it's true, but Brazil. That's why the divide for the two.
It's true. I actually did a piece on this story for Newsline, Bengaluru's Little Brazil or something like that. And it's like a 15-minute thing where I interacted with certain people there, and it's incredible how they have a split, like you mentioned, Argentina, Brazil, but it's again the passion of the sport which is taking over the game over there. But the reason why I also kind of brought that up in this whole journey of yours is if you see like a really like a rough diamond, right? Like a diamond in the rough or whatever, how do you hone those kids and skills and take forward?
So I think the brutal honesty is you will need to create a system wherein there's enough opportunity at the lower ends for kids to play. They graduate and then they play professional, semi-professional leagues or so forth. And there's some kind of pathway. Now there's 2 problems to it, which is it will take some time for it to create an impact and for it to be financially viable for someone to take as a career. Because most of those kids who come today from an Austin Town, Murphy Town
don't have the money.
And what's their ambition? To become a cab driver for Uber or an Ola? It's like that, right? They don't really look at it and say, I could. Not everybody is going to make it.
But isn't that then the onus of the academy to invest in that child?
It is, but where does the academy make the money from? I think the problem is a chicken and hen situation of
and it's all like
developed talent or exactly. And see, in Europe there's money because society cares about the sport. In India there's money in cricket because we as society care for the sport. So how do you bring that about? Even today the problem in Indian football is the quality problem. You and I will watch a United game over a BFC game, right?
100%.
It's just how we are ingrained and we are bought into that. So you need newer generation to fall in love with Indian football, Indian clubs. They need to be more community oriented. There needs to be more clubs. There needs to be more encouragement for just get out and play. And see, it's a trade-off. You look at all the Indian CEOs and tech companies, they're Indian, right?
Correct.
And Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai. So that's the trade-off we chose. So we said we will not create the Messi and Ronaldos, but we'll create Sundar Pichai. And that's been the trade-off. And it's similar for China too. China has made incredible success or progression in a lot of things from a economical economy, or rather the technology field.
That's a really big standpoint, right?
Exactly. But you look at team sport. There are a few sports that they do. They play well. Maybe badminton, doubles, and so forth. But the others, they really haven't taken to football either. So football is very, very, very culturally culturally sort of embedded sports. You need people out there to come out and play for you to. And it's, like I said, it's early specialization. So there's another very interesting stat. Most successful footballers, pick them out, right? For that extension, most successful sportsmen, they're all younger siblings.
They all have younger siblings?
No, they are younger siblings.
Oh, yeah, all younger siblings.
Sachin.
Yeah.
Messi. Ronaldo.
Yeah.
You can name them.
Correct.
They're all Dravid. He has an older brother.
And you think that has a heavy influence?
Yeah, because parents try to figure it out with the first one, but get it right mostly with the second one. Because the first one is going to the academy for the first time, is trying to learn, etc. The second one, also because parents learn from the mistakes of the first.
Yeah,
or the second one's journey or process is refined because the first one is explored.
Yeah, because the more that I'm thinking about it right now, it definitely can't just be a mere coincidence, right? Because it's a cross sport that you're talking about, which is absolutely nuts. I just want to ask you about that whole baby sort of program, right? Which Richard alluded to from Latin America and stuff. Can they just copy that blueprint?
Yeah, they can. I think
and deputize it here.
We can. I think there's another strange problem in Indian football, and I don't know for other sports as much, but cricket doesn't have it, but football has it, and it's insecurity. So in football, I don't know why, but see, for a city like Bangalore, you can have 40 leagues, right? With like 10, 12 teams each, because there's so much population here. Bombay could do double of that. Now, there's no infrastructure. That's a different problem. But most often than not, people...
But will it be quality 40 leagues?
See, in the beginning, nothing will have quality. Let's face it. But over time, you can build it. And I have some video clips of kids who play football for these academies. Back when we used to do it, we would record them and try to put it on social media just to create that excitement. Some of the kids at the age 4, 5 are incredible. But then we don't have systems and a structure to hone that and take them to 15 or 25, right?
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and I remember when I was doing the AIFF program, the coach there said that there used to be a World Cup of sorts for underprivileged sector, where people who are, from the slums and who don't have homes and children of laborers, etc., and orphans for that matter, would pick them up and they would make them play a tournament. I don't know how big or small it was, and to be honest, I couldn't find a reference of it too. But he said if we go under 5, under 6, India has a chance to beat anybody. Because at that strata, if a kid's out there from that section of society, they're facing hardships. Their adversity quotient is very high. They can take shit and still move on, right?
But how do they quantify the growth of that? Because that's something crucial that you mentioned right now. Ultimately, then you'll still have people watching this podcast or jumping onto this conversation saying, I get that, but where do we see India making the World Cup? Is it 2034? Is it 2030?
I don't think
with this plan.
Unless FIFA expands to like 60 teams or something, or even then I doubt it. Or unless we host it, I don't see us playing a World Cup in our lifetime.
Don't say that, Saanand.
I don't.
Because you just mentioned it a while ago, right? And you touched upon an important time period for the AIFF in Indian football, that mid-2010s when everything just started going away for India and football in particular. I just feel like even if you have to implement this baby thing and it starts stage 4, 5, surely 2036, 2040, 2044, those are the years that we can see of.
Yeah, I mean, see, so I remember...
Because I can tell you one thing, we'll see it, you know how we'll see it? With all the money that we have in our country right now. Because obviously we're like...
So, if anyone's going to do it in Asia, China will do it first. And if China does it, it's a blueprint that India can also do it. Because they have more money, they have more resources, they have better infra, and they are regimented. They can implement the premier can say, hey, play football, and everybody will play football.
No, I get that. I just feel like because now India have a seat in the table in terms of G8 and all of that stuff, I just generally think we're progressing so much as a nation.
Sure.
Ultimately, it probably, I'm not singling out the Prime Minister here, but his vision surely is to get the Olympics in India, 2036. From there on, I would feel like there will be some guy like Jay Shah in terms of Indian sport and be like, listen, we're hosting the World Cup like Qatar. we might go out of the group stage.
So that's why I said, if you host it, then yeah. Like,
100%.
look at simple, right? If you want to play the World Cup,
host it.
okay, no, not just that. Look at where you are in the Asian Cup.
Yeah.
We played the Asian Cup. I watched it last year, right? We played, I think we had Qatar in our group. They were tough. We had, who else do we have in our group? Australia? No, we played Australia. We didn't play
Qatar. We had
Tajikistan.
We had Tajikistan. And we had Bahrain.
We didn't score a goal.
Yeah.
So what's the point? And we were getting out-muscled. No 50. I didn't see, in whatever minutes I watched, I didn't see us win a single 50-50. The game against Australia, we were parked the bus in the first half. I think they had, I don't know how many corners. We were just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
You're not gonna...
The only teams you'll beat is like maybe...
Okay, I'll tell you the problem.
Pakistan.
This is my one-word problem, like summary of this, right? I mean no disrespect to anybody, but if the best player in the country is 39 or 40, he just retired, there's a problem.
But obviously Chetri has the goals and numbers to back it up, and I think...
Sure, but let's face it, it's not a Messi Ronaldo situation.
Correct, but you're saying there's no Bellingham, there's no Foden in our system right now.
There's no...
Like this Ashik Korean.
There's no Jamie Carragher in our system right now. Like there's no Richard Dunn in our system right now. We don't have... we're far away from any of that. Like if you want to play the World Cup, you got to become the best in Asia or become the top 4 or 5 in Asia, because only 5 slots.
Fair.
Now it'll go to 10 or whatever. Little more than that, maybe 7, 8.
You know what the starting thing is? Like, say... Sandeep Jhingan, right? Veteran and all of that. Even if he had to play in the A-League, he won't start.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think Indian players need to figure out a way to get out of India when they're young.
Yeah.
Go to other footballing nations and figure out their trade there.
Yeah.
Look at... So Japan is doing well now, right? Half the Japanese team play in Europe or more than that.
Yeah.
Sometimes not in the first division but second division, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
Because you would be better than any top league in Asia.
Correct.
So we need to explore more of that.
Yeah.
And I think there's a problem there because India's rank is so low in FIFA that you don't get work permits in most of the bigger leagues.
Yeah.
So you got to go to some country like probably Czech Republic or something and play the league there.
Yeah.
Or maybe somewhere else. But we have to figure out how that is, because Iran has done it. They, I think, had 3 players in the Premier League at some point. Carlos Queiroz was their manager.
Correct, yeah.
Right? And he got them stability, and he was there for good 10 years or so, and they played. He came and played it here in Kamtirwa. I remember going and watching just for Carlos.
Yeah.
Right? And like I think they had, who's that player they had? He played for Fulham, I think. He was a winger.
Iranian?
Yeah, with D.
Oh, I know what you mean. That guy with...
Didja? No. Something?
Yeah.
Can you just check Google, like Fulham Iranian player? Iranian player who played for Fulham.
And he's got a belter also.
Yeah, he was damn good.
He's got a belter. I forgot his...
Dejaga?
Something like that.
Was it Dejaga? Somebody else. But he also wasn't... there's another problem, which is we don't allow people of Indian origin to play for us.
Yeah.
Right? Because dual citizenship passport is not possible.
Timorian. Timorian.
No, he's old. No. He played for Fulham.
Yeah.
What is his name?
Karim Bagheri and Andranik Timorian.
I don't think it's that.
Something with D.
Yeah. I think it was Dejaga, but anyway, just check, no? Dejaga, D-E-J-A-G-E-H.
Yeah. Dejaga.
See?
31st August 2012.
Yeah, he played for them, I remember.
So basically, even if you meet in Iran, I'm saying if India, Iran, India, Australia, India, Japan, we're just going to get slaughtered.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you jokingly ask the class of 92 to get Salford to play India, right? They will absolutely wall.
Of course.
They'll be like, it's like maybe 3-0 up and then they'll take it easy. You know?
So even, I saw the Under-17 World Cup, the one England won here, right?
Yeah.
Foden was the player of the tournament there.
Yeah.
There was Foden, who else was there in that team? There was Raheem Brewster.
Yeah, Raheem Brewster was there.
Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah, even this guy who played centre back for them Euros, Mark Gahey.
Mark Gahey was there, correct.
Mark Gahey was
so and that was a good English team that came out. I forgot who the manager was, but anyway.
Yeah.
Not Southgate.
Definitely not.
So they came and played here, and I remember India playing in that tournament, and we had Brazil, a lot of other teams, and I saw India and I was like, not bad. Like for 17, like something is there, but obviously not there yet either, right?
Yeah.
So
little glimpses.
Yeah, there's a bit of things that you have to focus about nutrition. You have to get a lot of things right at a young age to compete with the elites because they have footballing culture and it's like cricket.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take Denmark and Italy to beat us in cricket?
Yeah.
Or even compete with us in cricket? Or Netherlands for that matter?
Correct.
It's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because we are so much more superior.
Exactly. And then the whole passport things make a huge difference.
Yeah, of course they do.
Huge difference.
And that's the thing with football as well. Countries that are in the top 20 rankings of FIFA or 30 rankings of FIFA, I mean, even the ones who play the World Cup, right? Barring probably 4 or 5 of them who get in on some chance.
Yeah.
Rest of them have strong footballing culture.
Yeah.
Which has been developed and perfected over decades. So,
and people will point to the past and give examples of Vikram Dalasu or Michael Chopra or even how Baichung Putty, I think, got a call up from Bury FC, was it? And then he didn't end up going or something like that.
Some work permit issues.
So
I don't think they can all
things like that. And then when you look back at the history, and now I think they came up with another movie with Ajay Maidan as well. It just makes you think, fuck man, like this is the world's best sport, most loved sport, beautiful game and all of that. It's sad that we can't even be one of the 32 nations, right? And that's what bothers me.
Now it's 48 now for next World Cup.
Yeah,
They've expanded it.
So I hope going forward we get some sort of World Cup. I mean, even if we do it the Qatar way, so be it. I want to see it before I go to my grave. Because it is disturbing, right? We love our sport. You and me have been United fans for 20 years now? Yeah. When was your first ever United game?
4-2 at Highbury.
Oh, wild.
The tunnel, the clash of the tunnel.
What a game that was.
20 years, yeah.
So good. So good. I mean, generally, everyone who laughs at me now in the last 10 years of my life, because I'm a United fan, RCB fan, haven't won shit since then, right? So people obviously think, but we've seen moments like no other team. You can talk to me about your Guardiola City or your Klopp Liverpool or whoever. Great teams. But the way we won games, the way we won titles, just so good.
Yeah, it was direct.
It was unpredictable.
Yeah.
With Guardiola, you know what you're going to get, a 3-0 absolute pasting.
And this is the impact, right? Like when I talk to people today, they talk about how, Bielsa came out recently and said, out and said, there's the problem with football and they're trying to regiment football, right?
Yeah.
And you can see that in world football today. There aren't enough pure strikers anymore.
Correct.
Lewandowski, Harry Kane, how many of those are there? Endrick maybe might come through, but I don't know how many of the pure forwards
are there. It's an endangered species.
Yeah, because the game has become so controlled because Guardiola has shown a certain system and everyone's now taking to it.
It's a point that you mentioned a while ago, the fact that has been so infectious
culture
with world football. You take out the good old Duncan Ferguson.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Hold up play.
And Germany has a problem with that. I think Schweinsteiger spoke about it, saying Germans have lost their identity and trying to copy. I think there's a lot of that happening in world football.
Yeah.
But but it's important to have, it's like for a team like India, a system like that will help.
Correct.
Because we have nothing.
That's
so we
true.
might as well play some way.
But when you're a coach, and I know you've been part of many sessions where you're coached by different coaches, does a personal side of you kick in?
Yeah, of course.
Because you've watched United for donkeys.
I love shooting long range.
Right? And for example, I'll just break it down for you. Because United didn't have a particular style. We would be absolutely electric.
I think, it's a different era of football.
Correct. And then sometimes we'd honestly kind of not park the bus, but essentially hold our shape when we're playing Europe and stuff away. Even in the peak of Fergie teams, right? And sometimes you could play the long ball when playing Bolton away, whatever, we'd stick someone up there and we'd still get the points. Has any of that sort of Fergie philosophy kicked into your personal coaching?
Massive.
But then isn't that a kind of...
So I think...
with this whole Guardiola thing.
Yeah. I think you have to take the best of... If I was to ever become a coach professionally, I would take the best of all worlds and put it together. I love the directness of United.
Yeah.
90s, there's Ancelotti's great quote saying, Cruz does in one pass what Iniesta and Xavi do in 15.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that, right? Yeah. It's like baseball approach.
Correct.
Then what Guardiola's done to football is make it like test cricket, to be very honest.
Yeah.
Efficient and all that, but it's sometimes fuck boring.
Yeah, very boring.
And all teams are doing that now. Everyone wants to play split centre back, wing backs getting in, playing as the inverted midfielder. I don't get it. It's great. I think it's important to revolutionize the sport every now and then. And I think once he's
done, it's predictable.
Yeah, but so you know what's happening now is you see. I think what Alonso's doing or what say some of the that Thiago Motta is doing in Bologna is a little more evolved than Guardiola's philosophy.
Correct.
So and I think it's based off that, right? He's taken. So I think the next wave will come in after Guardiola.
Yeah.
Like even if you trace back to the eras before, there was Guardiola. Sorry, there was Ferguson, obviously. There was Wenger who had his style. There was Mourinho who had his style. I think Guardiola's got success like no other, and hence it got adopted.
Yeah.
But you look back at Cruyff and Holland of the 80s, I think, which lost to Germany.
But also, don't want to, of course, sound like a typical United fan, but Guardiola, I feel, has had the perfect conditions to thrive in all those three teams. And that's where debate
maybe
would come
except
in.
The first year of Barca, except that.
Yeah, maybe that. But again, I feel like he would never be able to achieve what Mourinho's achieved across countries with different smaller teams.
Probably. I think it'll take him...
You throw Guardiola into a Fenerbahce job right now, he's not winning anything. Sure, he might take Fenerbahce... Obviously, it's Fenerbahce and Galatasaray. I'm pretty sure, like, Silver Sport and everyone don't compete for the league or whatever. But, like, I'm just trying to say that Mourinho as a coach for me appeals to me much more than a Guardiola.
Is it the personality or is it the game?
I think it's his personality as well. You need a little bit of dark arts at times, right? I think sometimes we get carried away in such principles of play what Guardiola has brought. I mean, I think in the 80s was it Saki from Milan who also had like an incredible style of play. And you fast forward.
I heard a crazy story about Saki's style of play, coaching rather.
Yeah.
So he would tell the team to imagine there's a ball.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, what the fuck?
That's mad, right?
And Ancelotti was probably, I mean, he and I think Rijkaard and Baston and all those guys came through Saki's coaching.
Yeah.
But he would say, imagine there's a ball, not play. I'm like, what?
Absolutely nuts. And then you can think about different styles over the years. And why we also love the Premier League as a product growing up, bro, is because Everton away, we knew we'd get a different game compared to, like, say, Arsenal at home or whatever.
And which is why the La Liga or the Italian league isn't that as popular. Right?
Correct.
Well, that's,
or the football cliche, can you do it in a cold, wet night in Stoke, right? God bless Stoke, wherever they are. Or Portsmouth, or seeing all these small grounds and how they would play that Route 9 football, that's gone out of the game fully.
True.
So like you just said, everyone with the centre-backs being split, you're playing Brighton away, or you might be even playing Cardiff in the FA Cup away. And I'm pretty sure Cardiff will try doing that.
Yeah.
Right?
So, sometimes I play with 20-year-olds and 21-year-olds, the early 20s, and they're like that. There's a lot of, I mean, see, when you're young, you also are, there's a lot of showmanship in you. You want to dribble everybody, all that is fine. But the principles of play has become that way, where they're no longer, people don't take shots anymore from like 30 yard out or so. They don't even try. Corners have all become about the short corners.
Exactly.
Like, the game has changed. And I think, in a way, it's good because I think for us, in India at least, more people are now, they want the ball at the field.
Yeah.
Which I think is a plus.
Correct.
Right?
But that's a very good observation. I feel like you can compare it to the Arsenal of 2009 when they had that Nasri, Kleb, all those guys. They would literally try to pass it into the net. Yeah. Like your Rosicky, your Fabregas, your Arshavins, all those guys. Amazing football in the final third. But then obviously they had a Marwan Chamak who couldn't finish, or like a Nicholas Bentner, whatever. And people would just like labeling Arsenal and be like, take the shot, have a shot, right? And even with Guardiola styles of play, or we see City, or we see Klopp's doing, sometimes just go for it, wind it up. That's why we love seeing Paul's goals at the edge of the box, waiting there and just banging it out of the box. So I would always choose different styles of play. You can various ways to skin a cat, bro.
And that, to be very honest, is like a very, very high level of coaching in sport.
Yeah.
Another example from that session I did with Richard once, we made this quadrangles of types and put them into boxes. And he said, imagine you're a kid, so I'm going to coach you and you have to do this and you'll have to coach the kids. So one of the things were, it's maybe 10 feet or actually more than 15? No. 20, let's put it that way, right? And all we had to do was from one end to the other, just roll the ball over your feet like Zidane does and just go from one end to the other and come back with the other feet.
Okay.
And we did that for like 5 minutes and then the other way and that's it. And the other difference was, the other variation was to pull back, the drag back, right? And one of the others was the Cruyff flick. He said, can you do it? And then can you keep doing it? So this is repetition, right?
Yeah.
So if you're doing that at age 4, 5, 6,
Muscle
you get better.
Yeah,
exactly. So I asked him, what's the progression? Do it looking up.
Yeah. Exactly. So
And
it's
so hard.
habitual.
Yeah, because it's so hard, right?
Yeah.
We aren't trained that way. So I haven't taken football coaching at ever for that matter until maybe at high school. And that was more about positional play and so forth. So I'm not that good at my feet. I'm more a Michael Carrick type of player.
Yeah.
I can exploit spaces, but if I have to say do a Rabona or I would struggle to be very honest.
Yeah.
A step over, I can't do a step over. I can't do two step over.
It's basically not a flair.
I'm not,
Yeah.
right? So I'm just very aware of what I can do and what I can't. But if you are able to manipulate the ball, then you can coach them anything.
Correct.
Then you can say, okay, play the high press system.
And at that age, if you're inculcating these skills, which has almost become second to none in terms of your habits and your nature, then it's great.
Exactly.
Then it's absolutely great.
Yeah.
So even if you're a right back and you have the ability to do a couple of step overs and take your man on, at a young age, then that bodes you so fucking well. Right?
Exactly. And which is why, look at goalkeepers for that matter, right? A lot of them are getting out. Like Dravid De Gea can't find a club.
Which is just so sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. But then it's because he's from a different generation. He's the last of a dying breed.
Yeah.
There are no more goalkeepers of that nature anymore.
Right.
So the game's moved on. It's a bit like, I would say, if you were a Pujara for that matter.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you look at him, he's not getting into the test team either because I think globally there's a expectation to play a little aggressive for cricket now. So he's not getting in either unless somebody like Gill and the others really fail. He's not going to get back into the team.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that going around too.
100%.
So I think that happens naturally. When the game evolves, I think some certain players who have the skill can be taken along, and the ones who don't sort of just follow you.
And that's the beauty of sport, I think. If you watch any contest, I was watching the Ashes last year, and baseball obviously was the top of the town, and how they would just be so at it against the Aussies. But Australia literally seemed like this immovable object, right? Where they were like, we're going to play good old test cricket. You might want to declare on day one of the fucking test series, which cost them. But ultimately, Pat Cummins and his men knew that, listen, we're going to show fortitude, we're going to show fight and time. And Khwaja just scored 100 or 300 balls compared to Root scoring 100 of run a ball, right? And it comes back to my point of various ways to skin a cat in sport.
True.
Especially team sport. As much as I love Guardiola, as much as I love these dominant patterns of play, I would just love the underdog story. Not necessarily saying every day of the week I would tell my team if I'm coaching them in the park, be like, park the bus and be Mourinho about it, be like, dirty about it. Because that also was a huge part of why I became like a huge Mourinho fan. Obviously not when he did it against us,
right.
But like when he was with us as well, he wasn't backed, and that's another conversation in terms of the people that he wanted and all that. So I 100% agree with you, bro. Like when we break down sport in our country, there are various loopholes with football in particular, but hopefully we can iron out these wrinkles in the years to come.
Hopefully.
From a personal perspective and from just a sports fan perspective. Yeah, like we talk about the World Cup that we want to see. Just the fact that we saw India win the World Cup, right? And I don't know if you saw that picture of Marine Drive. I mean, it just goes to show that this country gets absolutely united by sport. And that's why sport has been such a nation-building tool over the years.
Yeah.
Over the years, man. And hopefully that continues.
Yeah, hopefully. Do you think it's better time now than it was ever to be a sports journalist or to be in the business of sports media?
I think right now it's a fine line for me in terms of what I want to say on air and how I have to kind of carry my image as an anchor or be diplomatic as a journalist, so on and so forth.
Why so?
Because, for example, we kind of do things differently on cricket.com, if I should say, right? So if I'm doing a watch along and say it's an RCB game, there is a certain bias that I'm having in terms of calling the action and all of that. But that's completely all right in terms of our content. But maybe when I have to represent the BCCI or say someone else, I will have to just be more diplomatic and I won't have a chance to voice my opinion. So coming back to your question about being a sports journalist right now, there'll be a lot of people not agreeing with what you say or what you write or what you speak. But you just need to be firm about those points.
True.
Right? There was a topic the other day in office where it got heated about why Gaikwad is not having a better opportunities in T20s than Gill. And then we pulled out the numbers and it just got into that whole thing. So a lot of people nowadays choose to back up any statement with data, with football, with cricket, and it comes down to things like impact or strike rates and things like that. But I feel if you've not played the sport and if you've not really been there and done that, you can't really go over the top and criticize. Like, there have been times where I've called cricketers cunts or fucking idiots for like not reaching the ball and stuff. But then in the cold light of day, I realize I'm the armchair critic, and I'm hoping as a fan that he catches that and emotion takes over. So I've played it very differently, to be honest with you, Saanand, in terms of viewing sport as a journalist. I feel like sport has the ability to captivate, and even though I work in the fray of sport, you can get carried away.
Right.
You can get carried away, and I think it's a great time to be a sports journalist, but you should just be honest and stick to your opinions. People dilly-dally. People, of course, change their opinions all the time. We know cricket or football or any other sport is a great leveler. So one day you might be backing Virat, the next day you can't just be saying, oh, look at this guy, he's washed, or the strike rates are really taking apart. So I feel a lot of people, of course, criticize Hardik Pandya, for example, right, during the IPL, and a lot of things were not true about what he was kind of doing in the Mumbai management and all that stuff, but then ultimately what he did in the World Cup, many people changed their perception of him. So that's what sport does to you. Even as a journalist, I feel over the years I've said certain things about a team or a player only from a biased perspective, but then I've realized, okay, fine, you know what, I feel like if we actually have to measure it for what it is, this is the facts, and there's no getting away from that.
So, I want to touch upon this. So, BCCI is quite strict about what you say about them and what you don't, right? Like, you see, Michael Holding has been so critical of that. He thinks it curbs, and Ian Chappell, he stopped sort of coming to India or being part of commentary. I think he's not that active even in, I think, Australia. I saw him for the World Cup one segment somewhere. I was like, wow, he's still around. But what's your take on that? Is that good for sport?
It isn't. I feel like there are greater powers at play, and there's a lot of stardom in Indian sport, and there are a lot of egos which come with it. And Indian sport, especially cricket, has been star appreciating than sport appreciating. So we've had generations of Gavaskar to Tendulkar to Kohli, and from Kohli will go on to Gills and Jaiswals, and they will become the next poster boys of cricket. The BCCI are literally the guardians of every cricketer, and obviously Indian cricket generally, right? So if anyone badmouths your product or your space, no one would like it. The BCCI have so much clout, it is ridiculous. So, for example, if I want to interview anyone who's associated with the BCCI in terms of commentary team, say Ravi Shastri or Harsha, they would never be able to slander Indian cricket because obviously they get their salaries from that. And I feel like you should have that freedom to speak and say it for what it is. And there have been examples in the past where they have, of course, crossed the line, certain journalists and experts and so on and so forth. But the BCCI nowadays, if you were in the bad books once, you're on the bad books. For like a long time.
And when did this change? Because I remember it wasn't the case before.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the whole inclusion of Jai Shah just being Jai Shah, right? The BCCI have always been strict on things like content being taken away, or they don't have a YouTube channel. If they just have a YouTube channel, they would just be milking it, right?
I think so.
And there's just too many rules.
No, I think it's a different strategy. They're putting everything on their website, and then they're getting sponsors to pay them directly for advertising on the website. I'm assuming that's a strategy.
Yeah.
As great as it is, there's a great case study of I think baseball in US who did the same. So I don't think you can't find baseball content on YouTube.
No, you can't.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like MLB has their own thing.
Yeah, and as a result, what's happened is over time, baseball has lost relevance among other sports in US.
Yeah.
It's also a slow sport. Cricket is lucky that it doesn't have competition in India.
Yeah.
But if it did, that would have been a huge problem.
Yeah.
Look at any of the popular sports that have erupted into culture in the last 10 years, right? UFC. Big on YouTube.
Huge.
Built around it. Now I think paddle and pickleball, they're all going in that direction.
Correct.
And that's what's building the hype. So it's very important to actually put that, but that's another conversation too for a different time.
Yeah, I feel like it comes down to, Saanand, if I have to be very honest, about greed. And the BCCI have made lots of money. Yes, they're the most powerful cricket board in the world. And that's just how greedy people operate, right? For example, another one is if I want to work with the BCCI, they'll do a whole recce of me. And if I've said something bad over the years, like, no chance you're going to get a job over there. There's a lot of ego massaging required. There's a lot of buttering required, where even if you have to get 10 minutes of a BCCI spokesperson, you'll have to do a lot to, of course, get there. All the journalists in the Indian system have been veterans for it, right? So they've got a little bit of soft corner with the BCCI or vice versa. But again, the BCCI are probably telling them, listen, can you write this piece for me or give us a couple of good PR positive pieces? And I'm sure it works like that. So from a content curating perspective, it's tough because we can't slander them. Even if I ask a couple of questions to Brian Lara, who is probably going to be in the commentary team of the BCCI when India play West Indies. If he says anything wrong about Virat or MS, the Indian cricket culture, the BCCI are not going to call him. And that's sad, right? Because they won't have a chance to voice their own opinion. Like you mentioned, Michael Holding came from a perspective of how he actually was targeting T20 cricket and the influx of the IPL and how it's like really deterred the world. But even the whole BCCI thing, the freedom of speech, you should just have it. You should just have it, I feel, at least.
Is there any other sport body in the world that works this way?
Not that I know of. I feel like you could say the FA as well, but the FA, like, I think it was...
But FA, I mean, in England, it's a different case. The press has a lot of power.
Correct.
But they're just cautious, I guess, the FA.
Yeah.
Not to attract attention.
Yeah, they're more strict towards, like, say, the clubs or whatever. With journals and stuff, they won't.
Yeah, they're not.
Yeah, the relationship between the cricket board and journalists, I mean, it's very, like, in fear of, oh my God, shit, did I say the wrong thing? Right? And that needs to change. If you just want honest opinions of sport and what's happening in the current climate, I think Sharda Ugra came up with a massive piece, like a 23-pager about the reality of cricket and how it is and stuff, and that was very, very insightful. And hopefully things change, because ultimately, even if I want to apply for an accreditation right now for the BCCI, you have to be like a proper, not just linked in the media, but like either a vernacular, a flagship newspaper of that sort, to at least have that conversation, be like, listen, give me a media accurate. Otherwise, you have to like really build your media channel or your content company or whatever in a way that is tailor-made for the BCCI. And that's sad.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how I look at it. But I mean, cricket.com, we've not given all that ask about them. Times, yeah, sure, we are scared in our own heads and be like, we can't say this, it's all right. But we don't hold back, man. If the BCCI have made a couple of shambolic calls, which they have, for the longest time, they didn't have press conferences.
Right.
We call that out on our channel all the time. For the longest time, they didn't have press releases. And then obviously all those things came into play. So it's these small little things which make a huge difference to not just journalists, but fans as well, and people who love the sport.
Was this during the whole fixing scandal and all of that?
Fixing? So which fixing scandal are we?
The 13 one, IPL one.
That was, again, to do with pretty much those two franchisees, CSK, and then, of course, well documented now with Guru Mayappan and I think who was it?
So what is the eventual verdict that he fixed on his games, or he betted against it? What is the...
I've seen and heard so many interviews of that. I feel like I can still not put my finger to how it happened, why it happened, what was the whole crux of it. Obviously, those three who were reprimanded, I think Ajit Chandila, there was another left-arm spinner, and Srishan, everyone had their own conspiracy theories that, the towel popping out of his pants, so you have to bowl two wides or whatever like that. And then obviously at that point in time, Rahul Dravid, the nicest man in the game, he was captain of Rajasthan Royals, right? So was his reputation going to get tarnished? Because the captain had no idea. And I interviewed Brad Hogg about match fixing in one of the episodes of Unwired, and he said that just 2-3 people knew what they were going to do, that they were instructed from people outside the game that, listen, do this or do that, and you'll be paid so on and so forth. And at that point in time, there was, of course, an anti-corruption unit, as always, with the ICC and the IPL and stuff, but there were a lot of loopholes in terms of bookies calling players, and that was ridiculous. Like at that point in time, what happened? So it was rightful that both those franchisees had to pay for it, and it was an eye opener, bro, because it's not just T20 which just gets fixed like that, right? Like there was an Al Jazeera documentary 5, 6, 7 years ago now about how Test cricket, India-England 2016 series or something like that was fixed. Like one of the sessions. And if I could do the math, I think the player was, Mohan Ali or Max. So they decided in India-England series and India-Australia series where he had to play 2 dots before the tea session, and those are 2 dots, and the bookie made like a lot of money on that. So Al Jazeera did their deep diving as well. But there were a lot of people in that documentary, a lot of people in the Jared Kimball documentary. Have you ever seen Death of a Gentleman?
No.
Oh my God, watch it. Watch it. You watch it tonight also. It's on YouTube. It's just called A Death of a Gentleman. Jared and one of his friends just unearthed some of the crazy secrets in cricket.
Right.
In terms of the power established by the ECB, by Cricket Australia, by the BCCI, the real, not crooks, but the dons, the mafias of cricket. And when N. Srinivasan was there, or when Giles Clark was there for the ECB. So some great sort of documentaries out there for you guys to go figure out the math as well in terms of what it is. I would never like to believe that it's fixed. That ruins my whole purpose of existing as a sports journalist. I would always like to think that even every IPL game which gives me a super over is not fixed, is actually because the sport is great and the competition is so cutthroat that's gone down to the wire. Are other leagues fixed? Your BPLs, your PSLs, what was the other game which is going on right now? There's LPL, the Lanka Premier League. Right. This is baffling. They had 2 established bowlers, and there was a 7-over curtail game, and they're giving it to a part-time West Indian off-spinner instead of like a prominent pacer. And I'm just like, surely the tactics are way off, or 100% there's someone saying something from outside. And LPL, I think, has been black-dotted in the past with one of their owners having match-fixing allegations. It even crept into the KPL, right, the Karnataka Premier League. And
a few players were reprimanded a few years ago.
Correct. And now all these domestic leagues are taking shape, and how, like the TNPL is going on, the Andhra Premier League, and they're getting broadcast rights from Star and Geo and Fanco.
I think KPL is starting in a month.
Yeah, so KPL is starting in a month. Hopefully we can be doing some work for them. So again, it comes down to a lot of loopholes in the smaller leagues, but in the IPL, the ICC events, there's no chance anything is fixed. There is no chance. Like the World Cup final, many people had a conspiracy theory that it was fixed. No chance. There is no chance. Like, I mean, I love how there is so much of Virat fandom on Instagram where he plays a straight drive in the first over of the World Cup final against Jansen. And he makes the fielder pretty much chase it to the boundary, and then the boundary rope gets pushed back. And it's that end where Sky catches it, and people are like, oh, I saw Virat's visionary thinking there. And I was just like, guys, that's insane. But yeah, in summation, sport is not fixed. I at least don't want to believe that it is. Sure, there is a great Netflix documentary called...
Oh, yeah.
What is it?
I remember. I think I watched it.
Which has different episodes of sport. So Juventus's fixing scandal. There is the cycling doping scene. There is Hansi Cronjen's South African team. I don't know what the documentary is called, but you guys know what I'm alluding to. Go check that out. Plenty of things that... Everything in life is debatable that way, right? Because if sports come under the scanner, your fashion, your politics, your lifestyle, every walk of life is just introspected that way. I think sport has grown a lot, has evolved a lot, has matured a lot, but there's still so many things from an Indian perspective where we can just be like, you know what, let's get better.
So, when you guys curate content, so how do you look at it? Do you look at what is quality, what needs to be spoken first, or is it more of, okay, we need balance, we need views, so something like this is bound to get more views?
So, it's a very good question that you ask, because in my lifespan of cricket.com, which has been close to 4 years now, we've gone through the ups and downs, had trials and errors, tried to figure out content strands which will work, had massive learnings, massive takeaways from the past. For example, when we invested a lot in our experts, right, for IPL 2022, great names of the game, such as Swan, Smith, Russell Arnold, W.V. Raman, who had incredible insight about players' techniques, stories, anecdotes from the dressing room, but they would still be reserved and they would still sit on the fence. My job as an anchor was to make them talk and tell us stories, and I did that to the best of my ability. But ultimately, that wasn't getting us, a real return on terms of what we were spending and what the views were, because we were still not a 50K channel by then, and we were still getting about 800 views or 700 views. And then you have to think about, make a quirky thumbnail, or can you make your titling better? Is it always a case of adding Virat Kohli in your titles, right? Or is it always a case of having an incredibly animated picture of Virat Kohli in the thumbnail because Kohli is such a strong SEO play? He is the most searched athlete in Asia, if not the world. So we kind of use those little technical skills to get it numbers-wise, but it comes down to what quality we want to give our viewers, right? And we don't want to compromise in that. So I feel 3 main strands which has worked wonderfully well on Cricket.com, or for Cricket.com rather, has been fan cams. Short, sweet, snackable, digestible, seasonal with the IPL there. So people took to it like mad. I got a lot of recognition because traveling around every stadium, people are like, how the hell are you doing it? Because you do.
I have to ask you because, man, the summer heat here.
Yeah.
Like, I told you I was in Calcutta yesterday. It's hard to do Calcutta and then Delhi the next day, then come to Bangalore. My God.
The main apprehension I had, or I have every IPL, is whether my body will last the 74 days. Because I don't have a substitute. I don't want to substitute because I know I can really embrace the whole 2 months and give the content that I want to give to my viewers. And I feel my biggest fear is when I'm in Chennai, Mumbai, Kolkata, and how humid those cities are, you're invariably staying in a 5-star where your air conditioning is on constantly and your body is going through that constant change of 44 outside, 18 inside, 44 outside, 18 inside, like you're just going from hotel to stadium and stuff like that. Plus you have to be very cautious about what you eat. And then taking early morning flights, so then your sleep cycle's fucked. So a lot of things have to be coped personally, right? And I don't know if you know this, so I'm diabetic. So that throws it off even more. And I didn't have an idea that diabetes was going to hit me, right? So it was one random evening, I went out for a meal with my friends to Toast and Tonic here. And the next morning, I threw up and I had just basically a couple of gin and tonics. And I was just like, can't be a drank that much. Could be a case of food poisoning. Anyway, long story short, I go to the hospital to check myself out. And the doctor's just like, dude, your sugar levels are all over the place. And not a case of family history, anything like that. So they were just like, listen, you've just probably made this about your whole lifestyle because you consume a lot of sugar and stuff. And I play a lot of sport. I never for 1 second thought I was diabetic. But it's an invisible killer and disease. So having said that, I had to be even more cautious when I'm in the IPL and then eating and sleeping and doing my things right, because it is absolutely taxing. There was a phase, especially the final leg of IPL, right? So 15th, I went to Guwahati. 16th, I was in Bombay. 17th, Hyderabad. 18th, I came back past BCCI here, which is a mad match. 19th, we went back to Kolkata. 20th, had to go to Ahmedabad. So I was in 6 days, 6 different cities. It was nuts. But the few requirements I had to my team and my company, and they were gracious enough to do that, was Visara flights, Uber, and 5-star. You give me those 3 things, I'll make cricket sell. So coming back to the bigger question, how fun is it? Massive learning experience, massive amounts of fun that you can have.
And I think from that also you got your 2 most viral clips, right? I would say the Hardik one, I think went crazy.
Correct.
The first one also, or second one, I think the first home game, which is the 3rd game of this season, I think, after the Hyderabad game, which is, I think people had some colourful language for Hardik, and the KKR one here. That's
correct.
Was it SRH? Not sure. But I was there for both. I remember it just being crazy.
And people think that almost it's automatic. You go around a stadium with a camera and a cameraman and you'll get these kind of bites. But it's about not instigating the fan. The right word is identifying certain fans. It could be a really good looking girl. It could be an uncle who's pissed off. It could be a child who's absolutely desolate with his team's performance. So it's about identifying these key characters who can just be characters, right, for that content that you require. So fan cams that way went viral. I obviously got followers as well.
Did you get repeat appearances?
In the sense?
So, man, AFTV I think is the benchmark for us football fans, right?
Yeah.
Of guys who've done fan cam well and right.
Yeah.
And kudos to Don Robbie. I think he's made a great business out of it now.
Correct, yeah.
But he built characters. It was like a show because
Correct.
Arsenal finished a game. Then there was this post-game show that came out. You had Troops, you had DT. Troops was with Barstool, I think, for a while after. Yeah. And you had those other guys, Ty, my God, delusional as hell.
Correct.
But there were these kind of fans who came through and that made it a property, right? So do you look for that? Do you look for these repeat characters?
So that is more of my thinking as a video content lead in terms of shorter content. So all the YouTube shorts and Instagram reels that we put out, we do different sort of things. I don't know if you observe this other channel in terms of the front three of goal. They do like tic-tac-toe football and stuff like that.
Right.
So we've introduced those concepts in cricket and we build characters in our office establishment. The main character, the main person that people identify with fan cams is me because obviously I drive the show and everything like that. But I genuinely feel negativity spreads so much faster than positivity, right? So fan cams also got picked up because of that. RCB losing, people want to see how many people would just slam RCB. So there were constant Google searches of RCB fans' reaction. And that's when the SEO also helped us out.
True.
Hardik Pandya, like you mentioned it there, went in Bombay, was on Marine Drive, and they were just kids, uncles, aunties, just absolutely not using the best language about Hardik Pandya. But that's what people wanted to see, and that's what made us viral. You brought up the example of AFTV. AFTV had their strongest successful period when Arsenal was shit.
Yeah.
Right now, people don't care about AFTV because Arsenal are killing it, right? I was a huge fan of AFTV, in particular, not Robbie, but DT. Because DT would just come on and not hold back at all. Like, I think there was one game where we went in the Emirates and we beat them, and De Gea had an absolute fucking legend of a game. Yeah, the Titanic coat, right? Or, for example, every time Arsenal, whenever it was going to Bayern and getting walloped 4-0 or 5-0, they'd always get their asses handed, right, in the Allianz. And there would be DT invariably outside giving his thoughts. And I would literally not even be an Arsenal fan, because I'm a United fan, but I would go right after an Arsenal game, and if they've lost to whoever they've lost to, just to see this DT reaction. So that's the thing, something that we got on cricket.com. So when RCB won a game or lost a game, people would just be like, we want to see what's this verdict that RCB fans will have to say every 8 a.m. in the morning. So we found a timing to put our content out. In terms of the quality of it was there, because we wanted to make it massy but classy. So massy was the memes, and classy was like, people speaking really good English, right? For genuine cricket goers in India, sure, like I had to work on my Hindi, and there was a lot of Hindi which I had to kind of speak to people about. But people just appreciated the fan cams idea and they loved it. So we're going to still 100% do it wherever we could. I really wanted to kind of go do fan cams for the World Cup in the West Indies and the USA, but I don't think that would have had that much of a value add compared to an IPL, because I keep saying the IPL is tribal. The IPL is a different beast in terms of how it's made fans like and dislike each other, right? If you're a CSK fan, I'm an RCB fan, we can't really look at each other in the same eye. But like, if you're an RCB fan, I'm an RCB fan, I might not know you, but we're just like, bro, we're vibing. So all of those things, thought about permutations, combinations in terms of content. Fancam was one which stood out like mad. The few others that we really have done well with and built a community over the years is watch-alongs. So watch-along essentially for a football game is an hour and a half, 2 hours. For cricket, it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours. So I'm, for 3.5 hours, being as vociferous and high energy as I can be as an anchor, taking comments. And it's almost like, I'll give you a little example. Right, so we're calling the action as commentators and be like, Right, so 3 for none, 1 over gone, but what kind of fucking stuff is that from the first over that we saw? Unbelievable or whatever. Like, we're just giving it and calling it like fans watching it from the living room, right? And then obviously people are commenting in the YouTube and we're shouting out those comments. It's not like we're a channel in cricket in India not taking comments, and that's a super, super advantage with cricket.com. So we've built personalities even through the comments, and those 2-3 content strands, man, has driven this channel. And that's what gives me so much satisfaction when I look back. One way to do it is, of course, ball it out with your production, spend a lot of money in terms of getting your A-list cricketers, your KLs and all of that stuff. Sure, that is a time and space which you'll encounter. But right now, when you're starting from scratch and when you're literally kind of setting up a content channel, these are certain avenues which has worked really well for us. And it's about understanding what you want to marry cricket with in India. Many people marry cricket with comedy. Many people marry cricket with stats. Many people marry cricket with just, I don't know, ridiculous things in our country, right? But it's about identifying what we want to do. And everyone asks me, bro, can you describe cricket.com? And I feel like we're the underdog new kid in the block right now. We're giving you a lot of data in terms of fantasy cricket lovers, but we're also giving you some incredible written analytical pieces, beg your pardon.
Right.
Which is great. I mean, you download the app right now and go and read any article. You'd be like, dude, like, this is fucking great writing. This is like Sky Sports worthy, Athletic worthy. And I'm not even like, again, putting my writers on a pedestal, but they're also football fans. They also understand the spectrum of sport. And even though we're a small team of 10, 15, 20 people, the work that gets churned out of that office is insane. So onwards and upwards, I can't really fault my team.
Crazy. Do you think more fan cams are going to start in the country? I think it's just a volcano about to erupt.
Yeah, I think it already was, not I would say copied, because it's not like we have a patent and we want to like trademark it, but that concept wasn't really in existence till the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we gave it a real go, and we decided not for it to be just some random reel popping up, but a structured content strand, identifying matches, identifying longer videos, shorter content, whatever. And that's how it just picked up. Our competitors did manage to do the same thing. And because of their well-established numbers, it might have seemed that, oh, they got the traction as well. But I'll be biased, Saanand, and I would tell you that our fan cam edits literally reverberate what you get outside the stadium. So if you missed the stadium outside the Chinnaswamy or the Marine Drive, or you've not seen the game, but you've seen a fan cam, you'll be able to understand what's happened in the game, the sentiment on the ground, and everything that you want to see.
Right. So what's the response of the teams to this? Because I'm assuming if BCCI is so control-oriented, it's only a matter of time before the teams also start flexing, right? And then they wouldn't be so supportive, especially if they're not doing well. And then the fan cams are driving up sentiment, because that's essentially what happened at Arsenal.
Yeah.
If you look at the entire movement that forced Wenger out, AFTV had a huge role to play in that.
Yeah.
It might have been for the good or the bad, whatever it might be, but there was a consequence.
Yeah.
Do you see that happening?
No, not necessarily. I feel like that can be always separated, because I feel like in our country, fans are super important for cricket, right? And that's one thing the BCCI can't take away from us from a content perspective, that you can't interview fans or you can't put this up, because there are anyway so many no-nos. You can't use this, you can't say this, you can't apply this as an edit, finish software, whatever, because it's just in the system, there's copyrights, there's all of that bullshit with it. Fans can never be touched by teams, because fans are the lifeblood of any sport. And even if the BCCI wanted to interfere in something like this, how could they, right? Because if they come to us as a company and be like, listen, you're kind of instigating fans on the ground and all of that stuff, I was like, essentially, we're trying to paint a picture of what the fan is going through as an experience, right? And it works well for certain teams. It works wonders for them in terms of negative publicity as well. Why not? Like, I don't see teams ever having a problem with that, or boards ever having a problem with that. I just think it adds to the color of the game.
Right. True. Very true.
Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time. I think, tomorrow there could be like a Bengaluru fan TV, and then I see them like, copying the AFTV models.
Correct.
And I think it's very important. One of the other things you said about choosing between positive content and negative.
Yeah.
Negative will always do well.
Yeah.
And I actually have that kind of policy here, which is I try to maintain only positivity in all conversations. Sure, you chase or you pursue truth, but then you try to paint it from a positive lens.
Correct.
Criticism isn't always negative too.
Yeah.
And
controversy will always be there. If you dig deep, there'll always be some controversial thing that you'd want to, of course, touch upon or just understand from a different perspective. Because so many times you have a perception of a player or a team, and over the years you hear someone say that, hey, this is not how it actually was. It just changed your opinion. So things like that, I feel like generally coming back to the whole content chat, I would not, how do I put it? I would not think twice in terms of calling it for what it is, right? Like if RCB've had a bad game, RCB've had a bad game, right? I mean, there's ways to, of course, politically put it rightly and all of that, but that's the sense of YouTube content, bro. You just want off the cuff, unadulterated, unfiltered opinions in whichever way. I mean, you look at everyone right now in terms of starting a cricket channel or a sports channel or whatever, just be, if it's scripted, knock it out of the ballpark, right? Like mad scripted to the T, and good luck with that. Otherwise, just be yourself, just be candid, just be expressive and honest. It just comes down to honesty, because people, even if they want to find out about your content, sure, a nice thumbnail might attract them on the YouTube feed or whatever. But if they want to like literally be loyal to your content, they'll understand you for who you are in terms of, this guy doesn't hold back. He's going to speak his mind. And that's the modern generation that we live in. That I want this guy who's not going to hold back. We like DT or we like Mark Goldbridge because they're not going to fucking say...
Sure.
They're going to basically reverberate our thoughts at home. Right? And that's what we want to see on TV or on screen.
Right. In terms of like the state of world cricket, right? Because you can see it's so regulated from a what's good for business point of view. It doesn't benefit everybody. And then you have the big three, and then they have a larger share of revenue and so forth. Some would say it's the way capitalism is because they bring the revenue and it is. But isn't there merit to grow the sport beyond the 9 test playing nations, for example? One thing they've done really well, I think, is they've given everybody a T20 status, which is great. I think everyone's now T20. That's why you have the highest score in a game ever is between, I think, Namibia and something else. I don't know, I saw some stat the other day. So there's a lot of good and the bad, and I think they're separating the two sports. But what do you think needs to change from an administrative standpoint for cricket, world cricket? Or what should ICC do more to sort of reduce the inequity and at the same time expand the sport beyond the countries that are being played?
See, the way I look at it, it has to be revenue related. It comes down to that because like anything in life, what can survive without finances, right? Cricket is growing, I wouldn't say an exponential rate, but it's picking up. And if you compare the landscape 15 years ago to what it is right now, it's great. You look at stories like Afghanistan, right? 2010, they made that T20 World Cup debut against India. And 14 years later, in a similar country where they made their debut in the West Indies, they made a fucking semi-final. I'm thinking of the similar trajectory for someone like Nepal. And Nepal had probably the best fans in the World Cup of 2024.
True.
And I would say that even if you look at some of the screenings that they had in Kathmandu and Nepal, I don't know how they lost that game in South Africa, but they did. It just goes to show that cricket's been so loved by that part of the world. It's just a matter of time that they will break out into the next Afghanistan story. And you'd want to see more Afghanistan kind of stories in that space. Similar for Ireland. Similar for Scotland. So I would like to think that how we have the Asia Cup, have the Africa Cup, have the Europe Cup, right? Try to get more people playing the better teams. So if you're having Asia Cup, like how you have Pakistan and India playing each other, an Africa Cup will have Zimbabwe, Namibia, South Africa, Kenya, if the old, maybe Uganda as well, which we saw them play. And just giving these guys more of a chance to play with the better teams because they only wait for the ICC tournament to play with the better teams, right? So even, for example, Scotland, now people are making a mandate to probably go play the one-off T20 in Scotland if they're touring England. now how they've been going to Ireland over the years. People are now going to go to Scotland. People are now starting to go to Netherlands to play a couple of games in Amstelveen and then go for their main tour in England. So like that, right now, obviously, 8, 9, 10 good teams. The hope is it can become 15, 16 good teams, and then it picks up. From an administrative perspective, you have to get your India, England, Australia involved. It's as simple as that. Even the main prominent boards like the New Zealand Cricket Board, the Pakistan Cricket Board, the South Africa Cricket Board, they rely hugely on these three teams, right? You look at even the SA20 when it first was outlined by Graham Smith and the CSA, they had no choice but to send a second string team to New Zealand to play that WTC Test series, right? And that is, again, putting the question into the test side of things, because T20 is your money winner. And they didn't have another period in that cricket calendar to play the SA20. So they went through with that. Obviously, the SA20 will pick up in due course. But all the boards right now, even the established ones, are looking for their own IPL. So you asked me about the 100 a while ago now, almost like 45 days ago on this podcast. But jokes apart, I feel like that's something that they really wanted to look at, the ECB, and be like, hold on, the BCCI have done something right with the IPL. Why don't we have a brainchild similar to that?
But 100's overcomplicating it.
It's overcomplicated. They've overthought it. And like you mentioned, another important point, when you have the T20 blast, why start similar?
Because what they should have done is probably, I think they weren't, I don't know, it just gives me the feeling they weren't sure, and they were like, this is an experiment. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then we'll just scrap it again.
Yeah.
But why not just, change the NatWest into the 100, right? Like, for example, bowling from one end.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I never thought of it.
Yeah.
That's actually quite cool.
Yeah.
The 10 ball over.
Yeah.
Which is another, like, I play a lot of the PS5 game of cricket. And I've learned.
I love cricket 24.
Oh, man.
It's so good.
I know. I played 22. So during COVID, I think we got hooked to 19 because we had so much time.
Yeah.
We played 22.
Yeah.
And it's a multiplayer game.
It's a multiplayer game.
I mean, it's amazing.
It's too good. Like, I basically love the career aspect.
Oh, really? I've never tried it.
Oh, it's so good. Like, because you get to play different leagues and games and all that stuff. And it's just unbelievable. As a cricket game, I know people will be like, bro, it's all like FIFA.
Yeah.
And I wish we certainly have a bloody cricket game like FIFA in due course. But
it's getting there.
Yeah, it's getting there. But like, coming back to how the ICC can grow the game, the Olympics will be a very important cornerstone for cricket. Could be a watershed moment. The important thing is, Saanand, is going back to what I said earlier. Yeah, you look at the USA cricket team. Not a single lad is from Detroit or bloody Connecticut or bloody Austin or whatever. They're all expats, right? And until you get that going, then there'll be a massive change. It's all well and good to put cricket in the US and make India, Pakistan play in New York and raise awareness. But is it really doing more harm than good? Maybe, maybe not.
But it's a start for these countries, right? I think if one ethnic group, let's call it that, pick up the sport, hoping either it solidifies or it expands beyond that.
Yeah.
So
and that's how sport develops over the years and generations as well. Like you mentioned, next World Cup, FIFA, which is Mexico, Canada, the US, that'll be 48 teams. This T20 World Cup had 20 teams, unlike the previous ones.
Yeah.
The next one also will have 20. So it's good that those 20 can fight it out. And obviously there's a lot of competition in those European qualifiers, albeit your invariable Ireland, Scotland, Netherlands will qualify. And then from your Asian belt, you'll have your Oman, Nepal, all of these lads, right? So hopefully we can get to see a Germany, a France, and Italy, because the European Cricket League is massive. It's absolutely massive, right? So we're thinking of also kind of getting our hands in that in terms of, how Fan Code have done it in terms of getting broadcast rights for all these leagues. And there's massive amount of people who are sitting Vela at home watching things on YouTube. It's fucking Italy versus Spain game. There's a game last year, the year before that, Spain versus Isle of Man. You wouldn't believe the scorecard. 10 for none is what they knocked off the chase. It was 9 all out or something like that. And he finished in 2 balls. Isle of Man only knocked out 9, something like that. It was ridiculous. But the disparity is there. only like 15, 20 years will be able to assess cricket in terms of, okay, fine, it's a 20 proper team competition, sports, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I think T20 is, I think, the only way that, or maybe T10s, or maybe, you know, the Hong Kong Sixes?
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I played a format of that once. I remember, so when I was 14, I toured Sri Lanka and Malaysia. So Malaysia has a team and they have a good, decent youth setup, and at that time, 2006 or so. So I played for like our club team in Bangalore.
Yeah.
So I played with those folks there. And
you remember Malaysia hosted a DLF Cup in 2006?
Yeah. Also the World Cup, the one I think Virat Kohli's team won was in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah, KL.
So I remember playing in KL, Johor Bahru, and some other place, which is another island of Sarawak, I think, I don't know, one of those states. But it was very interesting. I remember it was raining, it rains every day there. And we went in Indian summer, it was raining there, and then they put these mats on. But then it was raining so heavily that the pitch underneath was so soggy. I remember at one point, the pitch had these spots, you know, like these craters.
Oh, God.
Because they didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And I remember bowling on the spot because I knew the ball would cut in.
Yeah.
And I got like 3 wickets in one of the games, like doing that. It's crazy. But I realized that they have a culture.
Landing it on a
Yeah. I just landed on a crater and then just went in.
That's
every
bad.
ball just cut in, but it was good fun.
Good.
But I realized that they have a culture there. And there was a university there with a very good ground in heart of KL. Forgot his name. But the thing, it had some British, history. They set it up, something like that. And as a result, some cricket was there, but obviously they weren't at their level. But a lot of these countries do have a lot of chance, because a lot of now Indians and subcontinental people are migrating to these places, right? I looked at the scorecard of Germany, and I think all of them seemed like they were players from the subcontinent.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like anyone was German.
Yeah.
And,
I think it's the Tamil Nadu chap who's the captain of Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's nuts.
Interesting. So, from where I
like
realized...
a Subramaniam for Germany, imagine that.
when I realized that the European League is quite big. So, Grand Prairie Fire, they cover a lot of the news, right?
Correct.
And I love the show.
And they get sponsored by one of the teams.
Yeah. Something like that. I think there's some...
The Estonian team. Or the Cluj.
Something like
Cluj.
that. Some team. And I remember them talking also about a very interesting team from Ireland, some Irish cricket club or something. But they bring up a lot of these funny stories, and it's just the humor behind it. But I think it's a great podcast.
Yeah, very good podcast.
Yeah, I actually DM'd them and said, I love the show. Can you do more than one a week? Yeah. And I think it's Prof or Jamie, the other guy, who DM'd me back saying, no, it's not possible. I don't think we have the bandwidth to do more. I was like, man, I wish I could help you guys. Yeah, but exactly. But I love the show.
Very good, very refreshing because of the banter with Michael Vaughan and Gilchrist. Yeah. Obviously, nothing can go wrong when you put an Aussie in a room and an Englishman in the room. Prof has done a show, I think, on Fox. It was called The Night Watchman, and he used to kill it. So he's got that whole anchor personality over there. And then they've just thrown in the Statsman English dude who plays his character as well, right? Like, the fact that if you've seen Club Prairie Fire now for like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, you can tell like a few things about each person. And one of the definite podcasts that I listen to all the time. Like, there are few podcasts that I would recommend people to watch or listen whenever it comes out. One is obviously the Sky Sports Cricket podcast. Whenever Nasser Hussain and Michael Atherton talk cricket, I just love it. I've actually got an APK in my Android TV. It's called crickfire.tv or something like that. I should recommend it to you. And I'll tell you how to get it as well. You have to download one APK download and all of that bullshit. And then you get this app, right? And literally, it's like you have every sports channel in the world.
Yeah, so I remember because you were watching Sky Sports feed.
Exactly.
And I was like, how the hell are you getting Sky Sports feed?
You can get it as well, and you guys can get it as well. Trust me, because I'll tell you what, this app has changed my life. Like, I'm such a sucker for UK sport documentaries, live broadcasts and all of that, right? And it's pretty much shaped my personality of how I curate content as well. So this friend of mine, he was just like, bro, you don't have this. And he was watching, I think, one of the competitions on BT or TNT Sports, whatever. And we're obsessed with like Gary and Roy's punditry instead of this.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, like they had what Petri Sebra and David James for like the Euros. I'm not going to watch that. There's no chance. I'd rather watch the ITV, the BBC production and stuff. So what I did was I got this app, and it is just as simple as you want your Sky Sports Cricket, it's there. You want your TNT, it's there. You want your NBC Sports, you want your You name the sports channel, it's there. Super Sport, BN Sports, Fox Sports, Sky Sports, all in HD.
Wow.
And it's literally like you're watching it.
So
like
you got to pay for it, like the subscription?
Nothing.
Oh, man.
It's free. It's a jugad.
Then I think it's like we're in the illegal term.
I know. Sorry, please.
So forget about this. There is no such app. Made this app.
Yeah, made this up.
But yeah, I get it.
But yeah, I mean, for sure. And if you obviously have an Android TV, right? Like a Fire Stick.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have a Fire Stick, you can get this for sure. And it'll change your life. Because then you don't have to use your Hotstar or your Sony.
Right.
The only thing which will piss you off is like, if you're watching a United game, I'd always watch my United games on Star Sports Select, not on Hotstar, because I want that 10 seconds extra.
Right? Sure.
But the problem here is now if there's United Liverpool, right? And there's Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher and Peter Drury doing the co-commentary, I put off my Wi-Fi and everything on my phone and I would just be tuned to that. I don't want goal updates. I just want to hear Gary and Jamie and these guys analyze the game. Because, I don't know, bro, like the Star also got one new American commentator for the Premier League and that guy just pisses me off.
Really?
Like he's very Americanized. You might come across
John Champion?
No, John Champion and all those guys are amazing.
Yeah.
Clive Tilsley, John Champion.
David.
There's one more guy who does it in Sky who's really, really good. But
Townsend is good. I like Townsend.
Yeah, Townsend is good.
But they're the Premier League broadcast, right?
Correct. So,
or is it the Sky or is it the India broadcast? Because
so they have a world broadcast and they have a Sky broadcast.
So what's Drury at Sky?
Sky. So now he's been Sky. He is direct replacement for Martin Tyler. Yeah. So Drury is there. The world broadcast will get people like Townsend and all of that stuff.
What's your take on Indian commentators? Just overall, other sport or cricket? Bhogle still, you think, number one? Or is there anybody else you... okay, let's reverse the question. Is Manjrekar still the worst?
Manjrekar, I feel like has a huge bias in terms of his point of view and a Mumbai bias. And obviously, I'm not the first person to say that. That's what I feel. That's my personal opinion.
You know,
I feel
when the crowd booed Hardik?
Yeah, and he said, behave. Yeah, as if it was his own son. I was just dying.
So I was watching the Grand Prairie Fire and then I think Prof or Warney or somebody asked, does he have that kind of authority? And the way they asked it, I just paused the show and I laughed for like a couple of minutes and I went back to watching.
Man, it is unbelievable. Especially some of the biases you have. I love how Virat Kohli came out and silenced a few. And see, Sunny G, great cricketer of his era, and to bat in an era with uncovered pitches and no helmets, props to you, my friend. But some of the stuff that these guys say just because they're ex-cricketers is ridiculous. I don't even know how they make sense.
Right.
Some of their opinions of the game, some of their takes in terms of tactics is questionable. If you and me, sports fans, can see it, why can't they see it?
Right.
Answering your question, who is a good commentator right now for Indian sport? Harsha Bhogde is 100% up there.
He gets a lot of unnecessary flack, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it's sad because he brings in a completely different energy and voice into the game.
Yeah.
A more cricket romantic that he is, and he calls it beautifully. And I think the way he is able to narrate a story is fantastic. You still need a high energy, high octane Ravi Shastri character who's played the game, been there, done that, World Cup winning man, knows what it takes to be a coach, has seen Indian cricket evolve for like 35 years and still has that energy every time he's doing the toss out there. So for me, Ravi Shastri, Harsha Bhogde are the people that I actually look up to as a commentator. And that's something that I eventually want to even probably get into, right? Being a commentator. The ones that I genuinely appreciate from yesteryear or different countries, again, Nasser, Michael Atherton, Tony Cozier, God bless his soul, when he was there for the West Indies. Tony Greig, Richie Beno was just absolutely brilliant. I mean, these are normal names which come to mind. I would also throw Barry Richards in there.
Yeah, even I think
Robin Jackman.
Mark Nicholas.
Mark Nicholas is really, really good.
Yeah.
So these guys obviously have painted our childhood with all the crazy stuff they've said, right? Like, even someone like Ian Bishop, bro. He is just such an amazing commentator.
His homework
is incredible.
Yeah, like he knows everything.
And even if he's doing a Nepal versus Uganda game, he can make that feel like a very, very good game.
Exactly.
So him, Simon Dool, I'm a huge fan of. I actually love Apomi Mbangwa as well because certain things that he's commentated in the past, maybe again, an RCB bias with regards to how many games he's called in the past, but he also does a fab job.
Yeah.
So commentators, the current landscape right now, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Like I've obviously chose the UK commentators always. So there was a huge time where when we were watching games like the first game you watched in your life, the Highbury 4-2, if you go back and watch the highlights as well, the best highlights is the Martin Tyler and the Andy Gray commentary.
Yeah.
And it was just unbelievable, right? And the way the game also happened when we went 2-1 down and they came back fucking 4-2 and John O'Shea lob fucking Almunia, was it?
No, I think it was Lehman.
Was it Lehman? Is that
Yeah, I think it was Lehman.
So yeah, I mean, essentially, commentary is a huge part of why it shaped my existence is what I am today. It's incredible, right? It's a conversation we were having just a while ago. How does an individual consume knowledge? Right now, every child in our country or in the world has a phone, and obviously, video is the main way you're consuming knowledge. You're obviously a prominent reader, you love your books, and that's great. And that's probably a good way to consume knowledge too.
Yeah.
I've just never fit in that bill.
That's fine. I think there was a phase when I couldn't read books. I would start books and then just leave it. And I think there's this great quote from Naval Ravikant. He says, if a book can't keep your attention, it's the book's fault, not yours.
Yeah.
So move on. And then, it just works for people. By the way, contrary to this sort of thought and image that I have, I actually consume a lot more podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't listen to much music.
So say, for example, you're on the gym, treadmill.
Man, in the gym, I don't use any music. I mean, gym is playing a music.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm on podcast.
Yeah.
Even on the treadmill, I'm on the podcast.
Great.
While riding bike, car, whatever commute time I have. Even in the shower sometimes.
Yeah.
Instead of music, I'm listening to Fabrizio Romano's latest news. This morning I did that. I had an 8-minute video on what's happening with the transfers and Ugarte and all those things.
But you have a fix, every day when you go on YouTube, what is those invariable channels that you go to?
So I think I do a lot of talk sport, Sky. I sometimes CrickBuzz if it is that period. Your fan cams after IPL, I watched them all, to be honest. That was great fun.
And what about your whole United fix? Where do you get that from?
Man, I've stopped consuming fan channels.
Yeah.
I think I just get that from news in general, either it's Sky or TalkSport sometimes. And even TalkSport, I'm very selective now. Sometimes analysts come through and talk about the 115 charges of City and the complexities around it. I like to listen to that.
The Athletic podcast?
Not as much, because I think the Athletic podcast, if I'm not wrong, you have to subscribe to it, don't you?
Yeah, correct. No, but the ones on YouTube.
Not all. Some, yes. Like the Omar Barada one. I watched that.
Yeah,
so I'm very selective of topics, maybe.
More United ones.
Yeah. Or more things that I'm concerned about, right?
Yeah, because
all the business stuff. I'm following the Everton takeover, which just fell through, didn't happen.
Correct.
The City saga of everything around it. Apart from the Newcastle stuff, they just let go of the management. Somebody else has come in.
Yeah.
Even the Rajasthan Royals owner, the Manoj Badale, I watched 3-4 of his podcasts to understand the business behind Rajasthan.
Yeah.
At least he seems to be somebody who puts content out there. Other owners are a little discreet.
Correct. And I think he also featured in a chat with Sky Sports Cricket.
Yeah, he did. And that was also a good one.
Yeah, it was an eye-opener.
Yeah. So, bunch of it that way. Also, if I find, I watched a podcast which had 900 views, but it was about the 18 counties of English cricket and how the rule changes. And now, for example, Leeds, Yorkshire, they want to get a private owner.
Yeah.
Right? It's a topic in UK. Interesting. I said, sure, let's listen to it. And I sort of went through that trying to understand. So even in England, there's now a bit of, should we go private like football way, or should we stay traditional? Because counties were huge 100 years ago.
Right. And Yorkshire came into the limelight for the wrong reason with that whole Asad Rafiq.
Exactly. And I'm not surprised, because if it took them 100 years to get a foreign player.
Yeah.
I think Tendulkar was the first non-Yorkshire man to play for Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Right? Not even non-Yorkshire British person, but he was an international player.
Correct.
Something's there. I'm assuming they have themselves to blame for that. So I watch a lot of that stuff. So I'm trying to stay up to date with everything around the world. Harsha Bhogle stuff. I like watching Harsha's takes, be it picking the 11 or his lot of insightful things.
Correct.
So yeah, I mean, there's no particular channel per se. There are some preferences, but I have a division in my YouTube for watch later. It's sport, business, and advertising.
Okay, fair. Makes sense.
And I just classify them and I go through them.
For me, I kind of listen to a podcast and I pass out. I can't not now just tune off everything and then sleep. It's very weird. I feel like there has to be constantly something in the background. Invariably, that's the United stand. Out of all the Man United fan channels, people have staunch opinions on Goldbridge and they might not like him and they might think he's overrated or whatever. I just feel like if you're a United fan, he gives you in terms of, okay, fam, what you want to hear, and he's constantly at it. So he does 3 live shows every day. And especially in a climate and a calendar like this with transfers going on and the gossip, few things will overlap, but it's just a good little thing that you're listening to and you're getting your whole United fix. My cricket fix comes through various avenues. It could be like the Shubh Shankar Mishra podcast with Amit Mishra. I think he's done one with Shami.
He said some crazy stuff, didn't he?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
I get it. Like this, I get some of it is believable in terms of the opinions, like what he said about Virat, but it seems more like Virat going into it's the kind of stuff people talk about Ronaldo, isn't it? That he's to himself. He's changed after he's moved to Madrid. He's not the same United boy.
Yeah,
a lot of athletes go through that. I think it's more of channeling yourself and shutting out distractions so that you can focus on performance.
Oh, true. And I feel like, obviously, even from a journalistic perspective, you're asking people about Virat and Rohit invariably, right? So anyone who pops in a podcast going forward, it's just like, yeah, so what about Virat and Rohit? Like, he's done that not with just Amit Mishra, but Praveen Kumar and various people that he's done, or generally as well, the podcast nature right now, that person will eventually bring in Virat Kohli in the conversation, right? So what Amit Mishra had to say, I feel like, again, I wouldn't know much, but I just feel like there's that little respect that you have for Virat too. Like, he's a guy who's put India as his priority in making us the number 1 cricket team, right? And people forget that, oh, he's just a brash guy with ego, and just because he's flying right now 270 million, he doesn't have like the down-to-earth, humble nature that he hit. That's bullshit. I feel like it's
he doesn't need
subjective.
To also,
You saw this IPL with Ishant Sharma and Virat. It was just so good to see that two childhood friends are like bantering each other in the most hostile fucking leagues in the world. And Mishra, I think, probably just, I don't know, said too much. I generally believe that because 100% Virat can't be that different person, bro. Like, he's still grounded. He still seems like a very nice man. Like, there can't be so many people saying good things about him just because of fear, right? So, again, I don't want to sound like a Virat fanboy or a Cristiano fanboy. I just feel like because these players have done everything that they can, they will obviously be picked upon. Like, did you hear that quote from Kaka earlier this week? He said, Messi won the World Cup. Ronaldo's won the World Cup, but he still gets the same amount of respect almost. So a World Cup doesn't really make it tangible. And say Ronaldo wins the World Cup according to the Simpsons theory, because it's apparently a Mexico-Portugal one with Homer Simpson. I don't know if you've seen that prophecy. Because most of the Simpson theories come true. Ronaldo wins the World Cup in 2026. Would people then say, oh, they're both GOATs again? Right? So for me, I'd always say Ronaldo 100% or Messi. I know people will be like, oh, bro, you don't watch the politics.
I'm the same, but I think it's...
And I wouldn't say one's shit, the other isn't. They're both brilliant. Like, certain things that Messi can do that Ronaldo can't. And Fergie said it as well long back ago. Like, you both throw both them in a derby or really Blackburn. Ronaldo's scoring more goals. Right? And then the lockdown kids, as they call it, would say, oh, you mad? Have you seen Messi and all that stuff? So... Look, I've just loved Ronaldo. I've loved his work ethic. It comes back to the conversation we had at the top of this podcast, what kind of sports fan I am over the years. I've grown up being a Rahul Dravid fan, right? Huge, because just such a nice guy. But over the years, I've loved people who've played to win. Your Virat, your Djokovic, your Ronaldo. And showing that little passion, bro, because what is life without passion? What is sport without passion? You need that little... sort of thing, right? So I feel like that's been my thing, and they're always going to be slandered, these greats of the game. So that's how I see it.
Right. It's because you're such a big Virat fan to put you on the spot on there. Virat or Tendulkar?
Again, hate to compare, but I would say, I was just looking at this one fucking stat, right? It said Sachin Tendulkar, number 1 batter of the year 1999, and then showed the top 10 bowlers of the ICC at that point in time. It was just pretty much the names you can guess. Your McGraths, your Pollacks, your Ambrose, your Walsh, your Sucklanes, your Donalds, the names go on. And you have lots of respect for Tendulkar when you talk about the bowling attacks that he had to encounter. And Virat has also kind of played his part. I feel like many people undermine Virat's hunger for scoring runs. Fine, you're playing Sri Lanka. Fine, you're playing West Indies. You're playing whoever, all these small little teams which are not the best of attacks, but you still have to score the runs. The ultimate currency in cricket is runs, and Virat's had that, right? It's no coincidence that he's got 28,000 international runs across the formats, and every other batter has played as much as Virat, or they've had the opportunity to do so. You're talking about other greats like Ponting and Jayawardene and Sangakkara and all these guys. But Virat's just superseded all of them in the ODI format, and I think even in tests he has a lot to be still written about him. Right now, if you ask me who's a better test batter, I would say Sachin. But who's had a better impact on tests generally? Virat, in terms of captaincy. Right now as well, my biggest regret as a Virat fan is him not winning the WTC. If you tell me he's never going to win the IPL, I would be comfortable with that. But if he is never going to win the WTC, that would hurt. Because he was a catalyst of change if there ever was for test match cricket in our country. There is no chance. We were just being downplayed by other countries saying vegetarian attack, you can't notch up 140 kilometers an hour. The work ethic that Ishant, Shami, Bhuvi and Bumrah showed for those 5, 6, 7 years was nuts. And that was Virat's fitness regime, right? So that basically is where I have so much respect for Virat. I respect Sachin in terms of just pure longevity, playing across different generations. Imagine the bowlers he's played in his life, bro. Like, not just talking about, like, say, Akib Dravid, but he's also bloody played like a Dale Steyn. You know what I'm saying? Like, the other day, me and my friend in office, we were discussing James Anderson's career and how he started in 2002 and he's finishing up right now. And he started off bowling to Zimbabwe at Lord's in his debut. And he's played cricketers. Yeah, and there were so many cricketers who made their debuts after. Like Collingwood, Peterson, Strauss, Cook. And these are greats of the game. Like in the pantheon of England cricketers. Yeah, Peterson as well. So things like that which just amaze me. So again, not to dilly-dally about Virat or Sachin, I would say Virat. And I know Virat himself will say Sachin, right? And that's egg on my face right now. But what I've loved, who's given me more goosebumps, it's been Virat. Like Sachin, sure, there have been great innings where I've glued myself to in front of the television. But I would also give you a little caveat on why I would say Virat over Sachin, because I'm a Dravid guy. So if you ask me Dravid or Sachin, I would say Dravid. I would say Dravid all my life. Dravid's done something no other batter in Test cricket has done. Faced 30,000 balls. 40. Name me a better batter.
40.
Yeah, so 40. Right? Even Sir Don hasn't. So it's just nuts. So Dravid for me, then Virat. I was a huge Sehwag fan. I was a huge Jayasuriya fan. Huge ABD fan. But Dravid and Virat for me, top of the pops.
I get it. As a lot of today's kids won't understand the importance of Rahul Dravid, but it was incredible. Like, even I say that, when I was growing up, my nickname in college was The Wall.
Yeah.
They made me a CMS Cup organizer jersey and they put my name as The Wall because I like playing long innings in long format and I didn't give my wicket away cheap.
Exactly.
And I remember the game I got selected to play for college, so they rounded us up in the first year, my first year, threw us in a game. Yeah. We were 29 for 7, right? in a 30 over game.
Jesus.
And I had to seed everything out with tailenders and get us to 127, 128. And then we got battered. The other team chased it in like 18 overs. Right, so we got absolutely destroyed, but they remembered me for that game and then they just gave me that tag. So people would ask me and I would say, not because I have the tag, but I genuinely believe so. Like I feel Dravid was technically just as good as anyone who's ever played the game. Like his stance and him doing that whole check of the shoulder, head in line of the ball. And I remember there was some 2009 series of New Zealand or so where I think he batted that innings with Gambhir to save the test, right? Where Gambhir, I think, batted for some, I don't know how many hours. But
in Napier.
Yeah, in Napier, second test, I think. And I remember there being a lot of chatter about Dravid adjusting his technique that late in his career. I don't know if it's true or no, but someday I'll probably get to quiz him. But
no, he did.
To combat swing, because there's a lot of it that time.
Yeah, and I feel with Dravid, why I fell in love with him is because of his just absolute defiance as a batter, right? Sure, you're always going to be compared to Sachin. You had moments of adversity where under his captaincy, India lost in Baroda the 2007 World Cup, and people were quick to like dish out daggers on Dravid. And you look at his character in terms of just being a test match batter and facing some of the fiercest attacks in the world. He was just minding his own business and playing towards the merit of the ball, right? And you'd see McGrath and Donald walk up to him and have a word, and he would just, make eye contact but look away and be with his partner. And that's some mentality that I grew up with, and then transcended to the Virat and be like, you know what, let's fight fire with fire.
Right.
And that echoes with the fabric of our current nation.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone on the road be like, tu kaun hai? Main bataunga. Like that kind of vibe.
Not bad Hindi.
Yeah, it's terrible. So bad.
On that same note, Anderson and Steyn, a lot of comparison between the two.
Yeah.
Steyn, I think, was on top of the rankings for the 6 years of his peak, but he didn't have any much of a career beyond those 6 years.
Yeah.
I think his last 4 years were really bad in terms of back and injuries and stuff. What's your take on that? Okay, I'm a little biased because Steyn played for us.
Right? You played for us, okay, yeah.
So I was a bit, but Anderson, man.
Yeah, I think Anderson, sometimes when you watch him bowl, especially in England, and people just obviously have termed him as Cloudison in the past and a home track bully, and I generally feel like he wasn't bowling. He was just having a ball in the yo-yo, like just literally like how you putting it in a sixpence in that game that you played a while ago. In terms of every time I take out his pitch map, right, and we have access to that at cricket.com, whether it's a spell or whether it's a test match or a series that he's played, it is metronomical accuracy.
Yeah.
And that is just unbelievable. There's one way to getting the ball move and exploit conditions, overhead and green pitches that England are gifted with. But to get consistent, to be fit, the way he's been fit, I mean, I still think that he can play another 2-3 years.
Yeah, I do.
To be honest with you, right?
I think he could go to. I think he should have gone to Australia.
Yeah.
For the next Ashes, and because I generally don't think England have the attack to win there.
And I think it's a little premature that he's decided to do this because he doesn't play any other format, right? And even when he plays for Lancashire, it's once in a while. I think he turned up in Southport before the series, took a 7 for madness. And your early question, and that's the one that everyone compares Steyn and Anderson, because Steyn obviously done it across conditions. It's not like Anderson hasn't got a 7 for in Sri Lanka, he has. But I would say in pure cricket explanation, swing Anderson any day. Just pace and nastiness is Steyn. It's not like Steyn couldn't swing the ball. He could.
He had a good also.
Yeah, and probably the only bowler in all of cricket to swing the ball at the pace that he did, right? You can talk about great fast bowlers, pure pace, Sean Tate, Shoaib Akhtar, all those, but they weren't swingers of the ball.
I think Shane Bond for a
Shane Bond, he had like a little purple patch, which is a great example. Steyn, I just feel across formats, across phases of play, with the new ball, back in the middle, being the middle overs enforcer or in the death, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. I think he was just such a raw talent. I think he debuted against England 2004, I think it was. And he just bowled a couple of snorters on that fucking tour. I think he got Michael Vaughan out. He got Strauss out. And it just sticks to mind. And then obviously like Steyn, I love him more because of the RCB legends and all of that stuff. But like, it's hard to pick, man. Recency bias would say Anderson because I actually got emotional. I'm a fucking Indian cricket fan, but I was looking at Anderson.
He was a nice guy, right?
Yeah, and I know he had a little beef with Kohli in that incredible battle. But again, that's one of the great sporting contests that we grew up watching and we'll remember for the years to come. I just feel with Anderson, even when his family was there at Lord's ringing that bell, there was something in me which not just had a lump in throat moment, but damn, dude, this is an end of an era of an incredible bowler and props to him. Broad obviously can be mentioned in that same breath. But
I think he's been overshadowed, unfortunately, by Anderson.
Yeah. So, look, in summation, I would probably just give it to Anderson, even though I love Steyn, and Steyn's probably done it across formats, like I said. But for him to be the only pacer in the game's history to have over 700 wickets, bro, that's a joke. That is a joke. And I just wish that, there was this people saying that if he had like if he played the series, he probably could have ended up, surpassing Vaughan. Yeah. And just behind Murali.
There's also a saying, Vaughan played that one test against ICC 11. Picked up 4 or 5, right?
Correct.
So they were saying that if you take that out, he's at 704 and Anderson's at 705.
Yeah.
So, a lot of banter.
It's nuts.
Crazy. Just quickly, what are your thoughts on how excited are you for the next 2 years of Indian cricket with GG at the helm? Because we have a lot of things in our favour, because all the big tournaments now are conditions that, except for the WTC obviously, all the other tournaments are in conditions that sort of, work for us.
Yeah.
You're expecting us to sweep everything?
It looks like we can. I say that because geographically as well, where are we playing the next couple of big tournaments? Pretty much in the subcontinent. You're talking about your Champions Trophy, which is the next big assignment.
You think we're going to go for that?
Will it be a case of मैं Barbados जाके गंडा गाड़ दूंगा, which is what Jayasha said? So imagine if he actually, Janda. If he actually does that, obviously there's more things to come to fruition, bro, with political bars and play and stuff. I would love to see it just as a resuscitation of the ODI game. And obviously it'll be, singular city like Lahore, extreme security, Rohit and Virat never played in Pakistan 17 years later. That's the whole narrative, right? Yeah. And Jayasha writes one hell of a script. So hopefully that's the scene. With Gambhir as coach, he's never been a coach. He's always been a mentor. So we have to take that with some pinch of salt. People are likening him to a Ravi Shastri, where he's more of a man manager, cheerleader, that kind of energy and voice in the dressing room. And I think he's an incredible man manager. I think what he did achieve with KKR, even though you had people like Chandu Pandit and Bharat Arun and great backroom support staff, what Gambhir did, for example, with Sunil Narayan as the opener, or what Gambhir did to unearth talents like Harshit Rana and Vaibhav Arora and get that spin trio really working the way they were working, was incredible. And I just think it's simple, non-bullshit coming from the coach. And I think that is going to serve Indian cricket really well. I think he's already made a massive call in picking his squads for his first assignment. Not having Hardik Pandya as captain, I think, is a very brave move. Many people might go in with that thought thinking, hey, wait, Hardik Pandya is a rare breed. No one bats and bowls like him. India have always been devoid of a Chris Stokes, Ben Stokes kind of guy, but here's Hardik Pandya. But here is a guy who also is a Louis Saha, who gets injured quite frequently. Yeah. Since the start of 2022, Hardik's played 46 as 70, 90, 20 internationals, right? And he was always going to be dubbed as the next guy to take over from Rohit. So now they've made that evident with Surya being the T20 captain. Rohit still charge of ODIs, and India, of course, plying their trade in the WTC. So coming back to what India can win in the next 2-3 years, going to be a big test for Gambhir. I think he's going to kill it. He's absolutely going to kill it because he has the players to do it. Like I said, the tournaments fall in his time pretty well. 2026 India, the tournaments here. Like I mentioned, Champions Trophy Pakistan. And 2027, the World Cup, I think, is South Africa as well. So India will probably look at that tournament as well and be like, you know what, we can win that. We can definitely target the WTC because there's no fluke in making 2 WTC finals. I think it could be a case of third time lucky. So I think in that regard, Saanand, we are in good, safe hands. I'm very, very excited to see this Gambhir era. How does he really mollycoddle Virat, Rohit, handles the youngsters? What does he say to an Abhishek Sharma? Right? Those are the critical calls he'll have to take. And I love the fact that he's a guy who will separate formats. And that's something that we've been crying out on cricket.com. So in summation, exciting times, man, for sure.
I have a wild theory. So for whatever it is, he's not in the scheme of things with BJP, right?
No, I don't think so anymore.
Yeah, for whatever.
Yeah.
This is perfect for him. He went to KKR, won it. It so happens it coincides with the Indian team's transition. For him, it's an opportunity to go in. It's a great period of, the cricketing schedule. That rather, it's like we just discussed. It's in conditions that favor us. He could go in, win all of it. I don't know, take a crack at the World Cup 2027. And once that's done, it basically opens up for him to jump back into politics because 2028, I think, is the Delhi elections.
So you're saying the future Prime Minister will also be a World Cup winning coach?
Maybe. I think the first step would be the CM of Delhi. Who knows?
Yeah.
Credibility is max at that point, and you need someone like that to take on Kejriwal at that point in time. So
I don't know what Gambhir's aspirations and ambitions are. I mean, your guess is as good as mine. But what I can tell you is that he wouldn't be shy making some brave calls. Absolute brave calls.
For sure. I remember I put out the story the day he got appointed. I said, he's either Chappell or he's going to absolutely be the greatest coach we ever had.
Yeah.
It's going to be a complete fallout or success.
Correct.
Like, he doesn't do in-betweens.
Correct.
It's not him.
Yeah, and he was adamant about certain coaching staff that he required. Like, he is spoken really well about Ryan Tennis-Carter
and Mone
Morkel as well, and how he would actually...
I don't think that's happening though.
Yeah, because obviously the BCCI want all Indian domestic coaches, so I think T. Dillett might still be the fielding coach. He's thinking of getting Vinay Kumar as a bowling coach, maybe.
Zahir, I heard Zahir could be in the mix.
Zahir could be in the mix as well. So you never know. Obviously, they will have some sort of discussions with Algarkar being at the helm, Rhodes still having a huge call. But a few brave calls already, and we've seen it with Gambhir in the IPL as well. The proof's in the pudding. When he was with LSG, he was sitting at the auction table, and they probably had the best auction in terms of purchasing and acquiring some of the best talents. You're talking about Mark Wood and Kyle Mayers and Dick Cock and Kale, and building a franchise from scratch. He nailed it, made them get into playoffs back-to-back years, got the gig in KKR. KKR as well, people laughed at him. People said, what the fuck are you doing? Are you going for 25 crores for one player, Mitchell Starc, who didn't fire initially?
And it paid off.
Paid off. He had the balls to persist with him and be like, you know what? You might be a laughing stock right now in the first 3-4 games of the season, but you would be the man who matters at the end of it. And I'm pretty sure those words were echoed by Gautam Gambhir in that KKR dressing room. Because he has the energy to walk into any room and grab the collar saying, listen, let's, of course, play it my way or let's go the highway. So, exciting times, man. I can't wait for certain press conferences as well. It's almost like, when...
Mourinho?
Yeah, when Mourinho became United manager, I just was tuning into every press conference. Right? Like early on MUTV and just be like, oh my God. And obviously, like the ones which are well documented is respect, man. Respect. But like if Gambhir does anything like that with the cricket realm and he has silverware to match it up, bro, the world's his oyster, forget Prime Minister.
What's your prediction for us, United?
This season, man, it depends on the system we play in, depends how we complete this already wonderful transfer window. I still feel that we can't go from 8th to 1st because we finished 8th and that's the reality. I'm so happy that Ten Hag has got that little bit of a contract extension because there's no one around, let's be fair. So my predictions with United is to give the top 3 a run for their money. A proper run for their money. Compete. Maybe we'll be in the Champions League next year. I think that's bare minimum. But if we can get 2nd or 3rd, I would love to see it with another but like maybe just the Community Shield for sure, just to start the season and our thing. And Mourinho called that a trophy, so I'd call it a trophy. He's won the Carabao, Ten Hag. He's won the FA Cup. Bring on the Prem. That'll be fun.
Quick thing before you go off, because you're such a purist and Test cricket fan.
Yeah.
What's your all-time Test level?
My all-time Test level, that's a great one. We were actually having these kind of random chats in office, so it's actually not putting me on the spot.
I do that with some of my friends.
And I love it. It's, and like, randomly we're all writing articles or we're discussing, and these kind of conversations come up. Like, can we build an all-time RCB South African level, right? Like, things like that. And we have a lot of fun doing it. So, I've already kind of penciled it in my mind, even though I never thought that you'd ask me this. So I would say, purely from my personal perspective, okay, in batting order, Sehwag opens with Hayden, good old left, right. My man Rahul Dravid, 1 down for sure. I'd put Virat at 2. I'd put Lara because I just missed so many math exams watching him early on in the early 2000s and stuff at 3 down, so he bats at 5. Cal is 6 is an all-rounder, and RCB bias, so he gets in there. 7 Gilchrist, just a swashbuckling fucking wicketkeeper. I haven't seen anyone like him. And then 8, 9, 10, 11 pick themselves. I mean, I know that's the cliche, but I would throw in a Bumrah because I think Bumrah, and maybe an unpopular opinion, but Bumrah I think is the best cricketer India's ever produced and will produce. better than a Gavaskar, better than a Kohli, better than a Sachin, better than a Dravid, better than a UV. I just think Bumrah is once in
because of his match-winning capability?
Just everything. Just a package that he is. Maybe it's his unorthodox action, the fact that he rushes batters through, whatever it is. He's just an absolute phenomenon. Like people say Jasprit Bumrah, but I just call him Jewel Bumrah. He's just a fucking jewel. Like we are not realizing it right now, Saanand, but maybe in 10 years, when we have the element of retrospect, we will look back at this man and his career and be like, wow. And it's these small little things which he's made us one. Like the T20 World Cup, people remember, but like the BGT to win it back to back, only because of Bumrah. We won test matches everywhere in the country, beg your pardon, the world, because of Bumrah. So he's just an unforeseen sort of person. So I would have Bumrah in my 11th. So
he'll be the 11th.
Yeah, he'd be the 11th. Actually, maybe the 10th.
So who's your 8th?
My 8th would be Wasim Akram. Because I think he's got a 250 odd.
So, and I'm assuming 9 is Warne.
I'd have Warne there because I just loved his poker
and
mindset.
Just leaves space only for Murli and...
No, and then it depends on the conditions. So I would say McGrath, Bumrah. And then Bumrah will become the 10. And then McGrath is 11 because, not to forget, Bumrah did take what brought down that world record over. It's insane. So
okay, so you're a Warne over Murli person.
Yeah, 100%. Warne over Murli for sure. There are a few names which I would love to throw in left field choices but wouldn't get in. For example, I was a huge fan of someone like a Nathan Astle, right?
Astle, why Astle?
So there was this game which I was watching, again, growing up, and I used to start... So my first ever affiliation with cricket and stuff was 1996, India versus Pakistan, Bangalore. I was taken to the stadium and I have very little memories, but now when I watch back the highlights and stuff, I can actually remember certain things. And then even football and stuff, I started watching around 2000, 2001. That was upon a time where... Remember, when did that Sylvain Miltord score that goal? That was a time when invariably...
6? It was 2006.
No. It was,
no. This is for Arsenal.
Yeah, for Arsenal.
2001.
Yeah, around that time when they had the bloody gold jersey with Sega on it. So at that point in time, I was just watching a lot of sports. So there was one game, a New Zealand-England test match in Christchurch. And just go watch the highlights of this man batting. 222 of 168 balls, Nathan Astle. And he's taking down people like Hogarth, Caddick at their peak. And one of the best test knocks, I would say, in my life that I've ever seen. Nathan Astle. Go Google it. Go check it out.
Right.
Amazing. And just the way he batted as well, I modeled my game around him for the longest time. So that was a left field shout. A controversial shout. If I had to throw in a Pakistan gun to my head like a Pakistani player, I'd throw in Yusuf Yohana or maybe Asad Anwar. I really like both of them. I also like that bloke Imran Nazir. He just had a really good bat flow, right? But yeah, I would stick to that 11 that you asked me right now. But yeah, if I could even construct that 11 in Cricket 24 and make like a series out of it, then for sure I'll tell you more about that. 100%.
Very similar to what I would pick too. But just, I always had a problem picking my openers. I'll probably swap around here and there.
No, but because my main omissions are Sachin and Murli. Right? So... That's how I see it. People will be like, Sachin's a number 1 pick, right? But I don't see it that way. I would see my number 1 pick in this team would probably be Warne, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, and just for the personality that he is and all of that. So,
right.
Yeah.
So, on that note, what's your 2027 India World Cup team predictions?
2027. Wow, that's still 3 years away. In terms of what team will be dished out for the World Cup. So, I still see Rohit in ODI mode. I still see Virat in ODI mode. That'll probably,
in 27? Both?
Yeah, both of them. Because they've given up this one, the shortest format. They'll still play IPL, I reckon, till another 4 or 5 years. And to be honest with you, IPL for them is not such a tough gig.
Yeah.
Because their bodies are well oiled.
Impact player and everything.
Exactly. So their focus would be in priority, the WTC, the ODI World Cup, and then for Virat personally, the IPL. So if they get those monkeys off their backs...
Pakistan?
Sure, because of the sentimental value of it, the fact that Virat and Rohit have never applied their trade in Pakistan, the fact that India has not played in Pakistan for over a decade now, more than a decade. Just those factors will be great to see going to Pakistan, seeing the competition happening in Pakistan, and then India winning it. That is the ultimate dream. And it's just another way where we can shit in Pakistan in terms of this one-sided rivalry. Everyone keeps telling me, it's a massive rivalry, but it's a one-sided rivalry, right? So,
right now, they're nowhere good enough.
Yeah, even the Asia Cup yesterday, I think the Pakistan women was taking the Indian women. I think India won that handsomely. So, point being, 2027, I still see Rohit and Virat part of it. And that'll be their swan song. I think that's when I think 2027, 2028, it'll be those years where it'll be thanks for the memories, but time to say goodbye. Yeah. Which is good.
Great. Man, this is fun.
Yeah,
I think we can speak for another 3 hours. Like around like 100% topics, but I think at some point we got to call it a day. So this is fun.
This has been an absolute fun session.
I hope we get to do some more.
For sure. For sure. You let me know when.
Yeah.
I'll be more than happy to come on.
Indeed.